these death threats that, I get. The last one I received was actually extended to my wife and my 2 children. In July of 2022, the first time I got this was with Bhai Hardeep Singh. Myself and him received them. A year later, he was assassinated in Shaheed. I got a second one in August of 2023, third one in March of 2025, and a fourth one just a week or 2 ago. All of them come from like national security in the country. These types of things aren't just one-offs. I think to me, what they want is silence. When I say they, I mean the Indian government. And if you give them silence, everything's finished. Guru Nanak Parchaar never gave Babur silence. No Sikh in history gave silence. The death threats for me, when I look at India, they come from a place of desperation. That if you have to go and kill dissidents in a foreign country, you're desperate and you're afraid. And it also means that we're doing something right. Otherwise, why would they come? Like, why did they come for Bhai Hardeep Singh or Bhai Avtar Singh Kanda? Something they were doing was right. We're not here to live long lives. We're here to live in the raza of Guru Sahib. कि ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਅਭਿਆਸ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਜਿੰਨੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਅਸੀਂ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ. Death is out of our control. Death doesn't mean loss for us. If you were going to die 5 minutes from now, are you ready? Guru Nanak came roaring into this world. So ਉਹਦੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਫੇ ਕਾਹਦੇ ਆ if we don't roar back when danger comes. We avoid risks in life to make it safely to death. It's not much of a life. Risks and danger te khatra jehda hai like sade mathe te mor lai hai guru ne. We say this with pride, right? Like te lakh banda bhi khada hai te ek guru da sikh hai like ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪਛਾਣ ਉਹਦੀ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ. But if you look at it a flip way, ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਰੂਪ ਉਦੋਂ ਮਿਲਿਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਿਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਮੁੱਲ ਪਏ ਸੀ. So your roop was your identity when you could be ਪਛਾਣed was also the cause of your death at that time. So ਉਦੋਂ ਖਾਲਸੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ that had accepted death and then they would take amrit and they would come in because your ਪਛਾਣ was your actual death sentence at that time. So it wasn't just about this idea that we can be recognized. It was this idea that we could be recognized, but we couldn't be broken. That ਜਿੰਨਾ ਮਰਜ਼ੀ ਜ਼ੋਰ ਲਾ ਲਓ, ਅਸੀਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਰਪਿਤ ਹਾਂ. ਜਿੰਨਾ ਤਸ਼ੱਦਦ ਕਰ ਲਓ, ਜੇਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਦਿਓ, ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ, that we won't break. ਸਾਡਾ ਸੰਘਰਸ਼ ਸਦੀਵੀ ਹੈ. And it's such a powerful statement ਕਿ ਸਾਡਾ ਸੰਘਰਸ਼ ਸਦੀਵੀ ਹੈ. It's everlasting, never ending.
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. So welcome to another episode of the BoS TV podcast series. This is a special episode because it's a live podcast taking place here in Coventry, Guru Nanak Prakash Gurdwara Sahib. And just a big thank you to all the Sangat that have come down, with Guru's grace. The Sangat of Coventry never let us down. They're always in attendance. So thank you so much. And of course, thank you so much to our guest today, Bhai Moninder Singh Ji, who's here in the UK at the moment, has taken out the time to come onto this podcast with us today. If you don't know who Bhai Moninder Singh Ji is, then I don't know what you guys are doing on your social media pages. But Bhai Sahib Ji has been doing seva in the Panth for many, many years. And whether that's in the Sikh circles, but also outside of Sikh circles, when it comes to media, Bhai Sahib Ji's name has been in the media on many occasions, and more in recent times, their name has been in the media as well. I don't want to go into details yet. We'll find that out within the podcast. But what I wanted to do before I start is I want you to just ask Bhai Sahib Ji a random question. For those who know Bhai Sahib Ji, who've seen Bhai Sahib Ji's videos, this is off the script, so I didn't send this one to you. But I just wanted to ask, why do you wear this Hazooria around your neck? Every single, because generally you may see somebody wearing it when they're wearing a bana, but every time I see you doing a speech, you go anywhere, if you're dressed in modern day clothes, if you want to call it, what is the purpose of having this cloth, this kapra, this Hazooria around your neck, Ji?
Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh. I don't have a straight answer for that, but I'll give you a roundabout answer. I think I'm just like everyone else, where over the years, when I used to go to the Gurdwara Sahib, I'd be in Bana all the time. And I was, from a younger age, anytime I had to go to the Gurdwara, jo matha tekin bhi jana, like I'd go home, ishnan karke, choda paake, like as in damala saja ke, I'd go to the Gurdwara. Then I hit a point, at a point where I was like, I started questioning, like, am I worthy of wearing bana? And I didn't feel like I was. And these are struggles I think every individual goes through on their own at some point in their life. So I started kind of wearing, bana once in a while. And even then, every time I would put it on, I had to ask myself, like, am I worthy of wearing this? Like, as a Guru de roop de vich jehda Khalsa pargate aaya. And then when I started wearing just a Hazooria, is actually, to be very honest with you, if you look at older videos or pictures of me visiting within Sangat, I only started wearing a Hazooria after Bhai Hardeep Singh Shaheedi.
Okay.
And it just was one of those things where, like, I don't know why I did it, but I just put it on and then I just kind of wore it. And then anytime I go anywhere, I have it on. And I think for me personally, it's me being anywhere in the world, in any place, whether I'm at the United Nations, I'm in Canada's political spaces, I'm in my own Sangat, that to me, it's my connection back to my people. To me, it's just like, me wearing anything else, from my shastra to my like kada to any kakar that I wear, that it just became another symbol for me to remind me that ਮੇਰਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੁੱਢਲਾ ਨਾਤਾ ਆ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਤੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਪੰਥ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਆ ਭਾਵੇਂ I live out in the West and I'm educated out here, I work out here, I'm born and raised out here, but ਮੇਰਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੁੱਢਲਾ ਨਾਤਾ ਆ, like as in Sardar Kapoor Singh used to say that Sikh ਦਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੁੱਢਲਾ ਨਾਤਾ ਆ, your primary allegiance can only be with the Guru Granth and Guru Panth. That it can't be with any state, any military, any police. You will eventually end up clashing with the Khalsa at some point because the Khalsa is outside of those bounds. So for me, it was more that it's kind of a roundabout answer, but that's the only one I can come up with since you sprung this on me.
No worries. Thank you so much, Bhai Sahib, for giving that answer to start with. And before we go through the, the chronological order of Bhai Sahib's life in a certain amount of detail, just to make it clear to all the Sangat, what is the aim of today's session, of this podcast? One of the biggest aims we want to achieve is to bridge the gap between the armed Punjabi Sikh and what we may call this idea of somebody who is a Sikh activist. Right? We're going to that terminology of what is a Sikh activist. Is this even a terminology as a Sikh becoming an activist, or is this in the DNA of our Sikhi? Is this something that, if we go back through our history and we look at these great figures, even here in this Guru card, you've got this banner in front of us, or if you go outside, we've got all these pictures of different Shaheed Singhs, Singhaniya, all the Gurbani, all the sacrifices that we made throughout time. We have the Ardas. After we name the 10 Guru Sahiban, we talk about the Panch Pyare, Char Sahibzade, we talk about, all the Singhs and Singha that they gave Shahidiya. We say it in our Ardas every single day, but where has the disconnect come? Where has this disconnect come between us today in the diaspora, even within Punjab, within India, and these Guru Sikhs that are doing this seva? And in some cases, I'm just generalizing, people may see them as hardcore Sikhs. Other people may label them as radicals. Where has this gap come from? And that is my first question, Bhai Sahib, to you, in terms of, how do we bridge that gap? Is this something new, this idea of a Sikh becoming an activist, or has this been something that's been in Sikhi since it existed?
I think inherently you can't be a Sikh without being active in some form. So the term activist is kind of interesting, but Sikhan da kam ya sikhana, like as in like mudala na jehda ye gall hai that from your like root ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੈ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਕੇ ਪਰ ਸਿਰਫ ਸਿੱਖਣਾ ਨਹੀਂ ਉਹ ਤੇ ਫਿਰ ਅਮਲ ਕਰਨਾ ਹੈ that you have to do something with that ਸਿੱਖਿਆ. I'll give you like from my perspective like on this question, ਸਾਡੇ ਵਿੱਚ we have this thing that ਤਿੰਨ ਚੀਜ਼ਾਂ ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਾਨਕ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤੀਆਂ, that we have three pillars of our faith we sometimes refer to, ਕਿ ਨਾਮ ਜਪੋ, ਕਿਰਤ ਕਰੋ, ਵੰਡ ਕੇ ਛਕੋ. In my personal belief, all three are forms of activism. When you come at the forefront of it. Karke jehda naam japna aaya, there was a time when Guru Nanak Pacha said naam japo, people weren't allowed to jap naam. You had just jehdiyan sakhiyan come in the Guru Granth Sahib as well, that Bhag Namdev Ji was thrown out of a mandir. Udo hi deora phirya si. So there's this idea that as a naam japna, to state it is one thing, to accomplish it on the earth is a totally different thing. So in that naam japna, it wasn't just that you jap naam or I jap naam. It's like collectively we all just japped naam here. Asi mool mantra da jap kita. The idea behind it was asi vi japna ya te doojiyan nu vi naal asi japona ya. So this goes back to Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj's idea that he gave why he came to this earth. Dharam chalavan sant obaran dost saban ko mool aparan. That the primary purpose of a Sikh was dharam chalavan. This is what Guru Gobind Singh came for. It's not my words. Dharam chalavan, this righteous world, righteousness in the world should be established. Sant obaran, that jehde sant gun, all these saintly qualities that we all carry within each other, ubbar ke should be then brought into that dharmi environment that we've created. And then doshta saban ko mool aparan, that jehde doshta, oppressors, tyrants, all these individuals, mool jar to asi putana hai. So in that, it's nothing but activism. So je naam japna hai, oh bhi activism, because you have to do it for yourself and you have to help others do it as well. You have to create that environment for them where those jarwane don't silence them in some way. Then you say kirt karo, kirt virt kar dharam di, jehdi dharam di kirt hai, like dharam, that term comes up again, of righteousness. That our work wasn't just honest living. Like, we have these very simple terminology we use in English. Okay, like remember the creator, naam japo, have an honest living, kirt karo, but kirt virt kar dharam di is what Gurbani tells us. Kirt ta tusi dharam di karni si, because it's the only thing that'll go with you. Everything else, yes, we get educated, we work, that's all fine. But we can't forget the one thing that goes with us, which is dharam, our kamai, our abhyas, our seva. So in that, I feel like, as in, like, that is also not individualistic, it's collective. That kirt jehdi hai, dharam di hoye, that means you have to carry that kirt into seva somewhere. And then ਅਸੀਂ ਵੰਡ ਕੇ ਛਕਣਾ ਆ, then ਕੀ ਵੰਡ ਕੇ ਛਕਣਾ ਆ? ਸਿਰਫ ਲੰਗਰ ਹੀ ਵੰਡ ਕੇ ਛਕਣਾ ਆ? The fundamental question around langar was, why are you here in the first place? So if somebody came to the Khalsa and they needed langar, it wasn't enough to just feed them. There's a question around, is there some type of discrimination going on? If a same family was coming back to the Gurdwara over and over again, langar khulla hai, they can eat. But somewhere along the line, is there a question that, are you being discriminated against? Are you having other problems? Like, as in, why are you in the sharan of the Guru Kar? Eventually, that question will come up. So idea behind Vand ke Shako wasn't that just langar dei chalo. It's like, maybe tusi Vand ke Shakana, aur unde naal Sangharsh Vand ke Shakana, tusi azadi Vand ke Shakani hai, tusi koi seva Vand ke Shakani hai. But it's been limited, right? So I feel most of these things have been watered down and convoluted to the point where they're the most basic form of what they were supposed to be. And that is why we have to go to labels like, that person's an activist, that person's a Khalistani, that person's a this, that, and the other, when realistically they were just all Sikh. ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ Bhai Moninder Singh Ji ਦੇਖਦੇ ਆ, like in our history, like, as in, I would say that, as in, Bhai Moninder Singh is remembered for many things. But Bhai Moninder Singh, the first jung after Guru Gobind Singh's leaving this earth, in 1708, 1709, there was a battle of Amritsar that happened in Amritsar. Bhai Moninder Singh led that jung, along with Bhai Tara Singh Vaan. And then Baba Deep Singh is another one. Like, as in, like, the range or spectrum of a Sikh is from Kirtani to Kathavachik to Sangharshi warrior. But when we start compartmentalizing that I'm only a Kirtani and I'm only a warrior, then we get into these problems of labels. When we were supposed to, every Guru Sahib showed us we were all of those things. This idea of Bagi ya Badshah was given by Pratan Bujurgs, that we can only be two things. We can either be Bagi from Raj, in search of Raj, or we're rulers. We're ruling and we're in that form of Raj. And I think that's why, like, in the question, like, as in, like, the activist piece, I think only comes up because people have been able to compartmentalize themselves. Based on my own weaknesses, I will only do this much. Therefore, my Sikhi is only this much. And somebody else's is this much. So I think for me, the bigger question for our Sangat, wherever I go, is what's limiting any of us, including me, from fulfilling the full spectrum of that Sikhi that Guru Sahib wanted us, which they showed us themselves. And I think that's the question. So I don't think, even referring to ourselves as Sikh activists, je tusi Sikh hain, je tusi Guru de Roop hain, then all those things that the Guru Sahib gave us, you're a reflection of all of them, not just one or the ones that you pick and choose. Because we pick and choose things that we're comfortable with. And the uncomfortable ones, the ones that involve risk, the ones that involve danger, the ones that, like, as in, may get you physically harmed in some way, I think those are then easy to avoid by stating that my seva is just this. But like Bhai Taru Singh seva was prashadde, but then it was kopad lahona as well. So, I think as we get further into the questions, we'll probably get into why that is. But I think that's a good start, is that, like, I don't believe that we have these labels. I think je tusi Sikh hain, it's Guru Kal de vich we got the spectrum of what a Sikh is. I think uste age piche is just labels we've made up.
Thank you. And this topic that we speak about, bridging the gap, and the points that Bhai Sahib mentioned of why, Sikhs may limit themselves, we'll touch upon this a bit later on in the podcast. What I wanted you to do now is just make it a bit more personal, share some experiences so the Sangat can learn a bit more about yourself and relate to you a bit more. And the first thing, G, is just to go through your early life, just your upbringing. Was you born into a traditional, or you could say Amritari family that was already into the Sangharsh and all these things. Just tell us a little bit about your upbringing, please.
I grew up in a very small town, about 2,500 people that lived there. It's like what you would call it a village, maybe outside. It was 6 hours from Vancouver. Most of you probably heard of Vancouver. And my father came to Canada in about 1970. And I was born and raised in Canada. And I'm the oldest of three. And when I was born, our family was not an Amritari Parvar. My dad took Amrit in June of '84 during Darbar Sahib's attack. Unhone ose hafte they took Amrit.
Right.
And Osati edi vaddi sigi that I think a lot of people, when you look at June '84, and especially jede baar reh rahe si us time te, and we hear this from our older generation as well, that asi kadi we look at June 1984 as we look at it as the loss, as in ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਾਡਾ ਨੁਕਸਾਨ ਹੋਇਆ, and people start using this type of terminology, which is incorrect. The Kalukara gave us something as well. My dad took Amrit, like Maharaji Kirpa, like I took Amrit, my Mataji, my siblings. Gali Gan Sade Parvar de Vichon, like Masiyan, like Taye, Taiyan, like Sade, as my dad says, Sade Kar de Vich Sikhi Vapas Aayi. Because of June '84. Nobody was Amritari in our extended families. Right. Now we have our next generation that has it. And it was all because of one little spark and one individual. And then their Jeevan and their life, like as in inspired others in our family. Oh Bota jada beej beejya sega, oh vadda hon, like as in our half of our family is Amritari. So I think it was we look at it sometimes as the lost portion of it. But every Kalukara we've had, they gave us something. When the first Kalukara happened, the Shota Kalukara, ਉਦੋਂ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਨੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ ਜੋ ਨਿਕਸ ਜਹੇ ਰਾਜ ਲਹੇ ਮਰੇ ਗੁਰ ਪਰਜਾਏ, that ਜਿਹੜੇ ਇਸਕੇ ਜੋ ਨਿਕਸ ਜਹੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇਸ ਘੇਰੇ ਚੋਂ ਨਿਕਲ ਗਿਆ ਆ, the Shota Kalukara that happened, 10,000 Sikhs were killed, 3,000 of them were then beheaded in Lahore after that. That in that ਜੋ ਨਿਕਸ ਜਹੇ ਰਾਜ ਲਹੇ ਮਰੇ ਗੁਰ ਪਰਜਾਏ, the ਹੁਕਮ was ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੁਣ ਨਿਕਲ ਗਿਆ ਘੇਰੇ ਚੋਂ ਰਾਜ ਲਹੇ, their only job now is to establish Raj, to safeguard yourself now. Mare Guru Purjai, Jede Shaheed ho gaye, Guru Purjai, they've gone to the Guru now. They've fulfilled their responsibility. In the Vadda Kalukara, when half of the Sikh population was destroyed in one day, odon like Sikhan de Gurmata si Tat Khalsa reh gaye ho gaya, usko khot gavaye. Basically Tat Khalsa, the Khalsa lives. Like as in it's not finished. Within 6 months they took over Lahore and they established Nisar Raj after that. The third Kalukara is similar. We gain things out of this because if we look at those moments as loss, then it's a historic blunder on our part. Because then you have to actually look at that and you have to go all the way back to Guru Arjan Pacha Shaheedi and think that did Jahangir win that or did Guru Arjan Pacha win? Death doesn't mean loss for a Sikh. Senapati in Guru Gobind Singh's court had a line that said, Ek aur pe ho Khalsa, ek aur sansar. Aur means perception, nazariya jada hai. Ek aur pe ho Khalsa, the Khalsa's view or perception of the world is one. Ek aur sansar, and the world is the other. In death is our victory. Sanu jehdi gal jo ardas de vich hundi hai, like as in we should just stick to that. Sikhi kesan swasan sang nib jave sadi. If we do that, we win. That's Guru Arjan Pacha, that's Guru Tegh Bahadur Pacha, that's Bhai Tyala Ji, Bhai Mati Das, Bhai Sati Das, Sahibzade, jinne bhi shaheed Puratan to Vartaman tak hoye hai, including Bhai Hardeep Singh. All of them, they won in those moments and they breathed life back into the Panth. And in that, I know I'm kind of deviating from what you asked, but I believe these are the things that were foundational for me as I was learning. But I think the Bota Singh by Garja Singh's story, in that, when it was declared that the Khalsa was finished, Odom Bota Singh, Garja Singh, they set up a morcha. And if you look at what they did, it makes no sense to try explaining that story to any average individual that you meet anywhere on the street, and they're just be like, this is insane. So just because somebody said that your people were finished, two guys basically with no clothes on them, took a bunch of big sticks and stood on the side of the road and exacted a toll. And they died. And it's yeah, that's actually the Sakhi. But from the Sikh perspective, as in that declaration of basically their sovereignty was in that. The declaration that asi nahi khatam hoye, that was in that. The line in Panth Prakash jo sade itihaaskaran ne likhi hai, sees lagaye, charcha hoye, jag yao jane Khalsa soye. that ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸੀਸ ਲਾਇਆ, that they gave their heads, they gave their lives. Charcha hoye, the whole world is talking about this. Jagyao jane Khalsa soye, that the world now knows the Khalsa lives. And that death was victory. So when I was growing up not in necessarily, I would say like an established Amritari Parivar. I think we were learning as we were going. But I had the opportunity to be around a lot of Gursikhs that my parents were around. So the upbringing was interesting because, to be flat out honest with you, at about 13 years old, I went completely away from Sikhi. Many people in our generation at that time felt kind of forced into the space. And I didn't really understand why. Why should I care? And one of the reasons I will say, and maybe people will find this interesting or not, and if you don't, well, you're gonna have to listen to me anyway. So, the first time I wore at the start of the school, because I was saying we lived in a town of 2,500 people. Me and my brother, were the only ones with case. There was other Sikh parvars, but no one had case. And when I was 13 years old, I went to school and I tied the Dastaar for the first time. First day of school when I was going into high school. And I was sitting in the cafeteria, and this kid in grade 12, who was like 5 years older than I was, so I was 13, he was probably 17, 18. He came up behind me and he ripped my Dastaar off the back of my head. And then he went into the washroom and he threw it in the toilet. People were laughing, like I was like Nanga said. So like I went and, I fished it out of the toilet. And, I was upset, obviously, like you're a 13-year-old. So I went home. And my mom was there and she asked me what happened. I told her. And then she took out another Dastaar and she tied it on me. She said, "Chal mudke." Right. And to me, these things were fundamental afterwards, not in the moment. In the moment, I was like, why? Like any child, what is this? Like, what is going on? Like, why am I going through this or anything like that? Anyone who's been in that situation. But she was like, go, you have to go back. And I did. And the years later, those things stuck to me, that as in like idrta jadiyan sadiyan mama de vich or in Gursikh parvars, that this is such a small incident of all the incidents that I just talked about, like by Taru Singh, by Mani Singh. But these little things matter as to how Sikhs respond to this type of even attitude towards them. People trying to strike fear into them. People trying to make them feel that they're lesser for some reason, or they look different and therefore they can be ridiculed or attacked. That we have a way of dealing with this. And my mata showed me sabr and suntok in those moments as well. My father eventually taught me how to fight, and the other side of the coin as well. And we did both as we grew up. But I didn't, 13 to 17-ish, I moved away from Sikhi. I got into other politics. I was more into just like, as in like, revolution and things like that. I was reading all these different books, and but Sikhi didn't make sense to me. And I didn't try it because it was whatever was being taught to me didn't appeal to me. Eventually, I came back to it. And I came back to it right when I graduated high school and I moved to Surrey. And I actually got Sangat for the first time. And then after 17 years, I understood what Sangat actually can do. And literally within 8 months, I took Amrit. I haven't looked back since. But it was the fact that I had nobody else to actually talk to, understand me, even understand the things that I was going through. And then once that clicked, as soon as I moved to Surrey, as everyone knows, Surrey is a massive Sikh population, Gurdwara, Sangat, and like Kathavachaks coming. And I started spending more time in the Gurdwara. Then I found it myself. And then I latched on to something very deep because I feel like it was good for me. Like as in like certain shabds stood out for me. And there was one shabd back then that I used to listen to Kirtan, I still do, but like as in then I was listening to one particular shabd and it just kept coming up over and over again, and at the weirdest times sometimes. And I still reflect on it a lot because it's Sonaman Mitra Pyarya Mil Bela Hai. Like as in Jab Lag Joban Saas Hai, Tab Lag Eho Tand Hai. And then even the last line, Bena Gun Kamna Abhi Tehet Teri Tankhe, like as in all of it to me is like wrapped up in there. That Sonaman Mitra Pyarya Mil Bela Hai. This is a moment, Jira Si Prabhu Parameshwar Akal Prabhu Nu Mil Sakde Hain, that we have the opportunity for this meal to happen. And then Jab Lag Joban Saas Hai, Tab Lag Eho Tand Hai, that as long as you have this body, you have this day, like as in like give all of yourself. For me, it means give all of yourself to humanity, to Guru Granth and Guru Panth, seva karo jini karam diye. And je nahi karni, Guru ne fir das vi ditta hai ki bin gun kaam na vi teh teri tanke, that je guna di tusi saanj nahi karni, gun tusi kamaune nahi, then after it teh teri ho jana hai jehda sari ditta hai, ਇਹਦੇ ਫਿਰ ਆਉਣ ਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਮਤਲਬ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀਗਾ. And these things, I think, from a younger age, I gave a few examples, but I think these things helped shape my view on the world. And I think even those bullying incidents, I often talk about it just with people when they ask. It also gave me a severe attitude that as in nobody should be oppressed. And even at my very, very, very minute level of my own personal experience of this, the idea of striking fear into someone to silence them or to destroy them at some level, I have a deep-rooted like a pain that I carry myself, which many people in this room probably carry from their own experiences. So if I'm a Sikh of the Guru, I have to like vand this pain as well. That you share another's suffering as well. So you can both try to figure out how you're going to get out of it.
And just touching on that point briefly about bullying, especially for kids that may be watching this or going through some form of bullying. We've had a few cases come up recently as well in the UK, but I'm sure it happens around the whole world as well. Now reflecting on it, you touched upon it briefly. What were the key things do you think that got you through? You mentioned your Mataji, your parents, your dad teaching you probably how to throw a few punches and stuff, but as well as the physical side and what your Mataji said to you, was there anything else that helped you get through it, and what advice would you give to kids today that may be going through similar things as well?
I think what I had was there was multiple of us that were being treated poorly in a way. But like as in like, it's very easy, and I hear it all the time, ke like, Bani padho, like as in like, and it always helps. Ultimately, it will help, like as in, but in the immediate sense of what you need to do in that moment to protect yourself is like you need people. So you need Sangat. I had not what I would refer to as Sangat. I had friends that actually stood up for me, and then we started banding together and fighting back. But until we started fighting back, and this might be the wrong message that some parents want to hear, I have a 18-year-old and a 13-year-old, and I taught them this, and it might be wrong, but it's basically, there's a Sakhi from Guru Gobind Singh's time, that as in like Datu, these Jadi Sakhi, that as in like one of his bhagats came to Guru Gobind Singh to say that, you're preaching this. He was saying violence, and Guru Maharaj was like letting him talk. And he's like, we have Datu taught us that if somebody slaps you, then you turn the other cheek. And if somebody throws a rock at you, that as in like you give them another one to throw at you. And Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj's response in that Sakhi was that as in like, I've taught them that if somebody throws a rock at you, drop a boulder on them. That they're not able to pick up the rock again. Samajh ta hogi. And I'm paraphrasing, but the idea is that you're not pacifist. You never strike first. Gurbani ch kehndे hain kaho kabir sukh sahib samavo aap na daro na avar daravo. Ki na assi kisi nu daraunde hain te na assi kisi to darde hain. Like this idea, but we also know how to defend ourselves. So I think for anyone that's being bullied, this idea that who you are, identity matters. And then how you behave with that identity is really important. But for a 13-year-old or a 12-year-old or like a teenager or even younger, like as in like it's very difficult when you're being ostracized at that age. And to tell them to do this or that, like I have no right. I would say to speak to your parents. The first thing a child can do that is like talk to the people that love you, talk to the people that are around you, and then have a safety plan for yourself. Whatever that is, the parivar will know best. But I would tell the parivar is that sometimes that safety plan has to be proactive and offensive and not just defensive. कि ਅਸੀਂ ਨਿਆਣੇ ਹੁਣ ਇਸ ਕਰਕੇ ਤਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਇਸ ਦੁਨੀਆ 'ਚ ਲੈਂਦੇ ਕਿ ਆਪਣੇ like ਕੋਠੀ ਖਾਈ ਜਾਣ. As in at some point, like as in like a Khalsa, like as in like they can take care of themselves. ਕਿ ਇਸ ਰੱਖੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਰੱਖੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਹੀ ਆ, ਸਾਡੇ ਬੱਚੇ ਨੇ. So we want them to grow up like that with that idea of kaho kabir sukh sahaj samavo aap na daro na avar daravo. Na tusi kisi nu darauna hai par na tusi kisi to darna hai, but at the same time have people around them that can help protect them. That's the only thing I could say on that topic is that families have to get together and create safety plans. And it's not enough to leave it sometimes up to the schools, to anyone else. And I say this in Australia when I've been there because there's major issues that are happening there. We're seeing hate crimes up in Canada as well for our bache there. And, banding together and taking care of yourself doesn't mean you're like some gang that's terrorizing people. Like, eta jatha hai tusi banauna apni hifazat de lai, and also for maybe even for the protection of others around you.
And you've touched upon this point about, you know, having a support network, having Sangat, and later on you speak about how you found Sangat as well. And that's what kind of was the turning point for you coming back to Sikhi as well. So can you speak a little bit more about that? What was this Sangat? What is Sangat, first of all? Because Sangat isn't just two people that look like maybe ourselves, because we could be talking about football, we could talk about anything, but what was that shift? Who were these individuals, if you don't mind, just any level of detail, and what really caused that shift, if you go into a bit more detail? Getting us to, I appreciate there's not much time, we're only here probably till like 9 p.m., but getting us to where now you're on the news headlines and your life is at risk, your life is at threat, basically. How did that journey unfold?
I think for me, it was, I refer to Sangat as people, they're Sangi hunde hai, like as in they have a similar like goal. And for us, Sangat means, you know, Guru Granth and Guru Panth. Jere onu samarpatya, that's your Sangat. Anything else is just like a Bahir, like as in like Bhagat Kabir ji says, Kabir je hamarak pandit ke pache padi Bahir. Just because there's a collection of individuals doesn't make them a Sangat. You have to be like-minded on the same path with the same goal and the same focus. And for us, that's Guru Granth and Guru Panth. So for me, anyone in that space is Sangat, I guess. And at the end of the day, even if our political or Raat and everything might be a little bit different on views, but Asi Fevi, Guru Nanak Pacha di jede e baag unhone sajaya Panth da, and Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj ne more laiya, we're a part of that baag at the end of the day. The baag de vich tarah de full hunde a, tarah de rang hunde a, tarah diyan khushbuan hundiyan. And like as in like we're all different, but we're a part of that same baag. So for me, that's what I would refer to as Sangat in short. And I have a much longer definition, but I'll leave that for another day.
Thank you.
But in my opinion, like what the trajectory has been from like 18, 19 years old, I started speaking at camps. I had experiences, so I wanted to talk about them. And I think, you know, I became kind of like a speaker locally and then more nationally and internationally as time went on. I enjoyed it because I got to interact with people, Naujwana Dinal especially. We could organize. There's a lot of gaps we were seeing. But a vast majority of the conversation I was finding was being actually subdued when we wanted to speak about particular topics.
Okay.
And
so you speak about many things. You wanted to speak about a specific topic.
So I was very interested in history, Sikh history in particular. My dad used to actually take history books. And on Saturdays, he'd make me sit on a table. And I would have to take the book and I would have to write out the pages of the book.
Wow.
And I always tell people, like, as in, like, people will be like, oh, you know, from quoting to history and dates and this and the other. I was like, Sade bapu nu puch lo, why? I was like, basically, batha ke, lakha ke, just kind of got, and memorization is a skill. It's not knowledge. There's a difference. So things that I'm saying up here might be memorization. It's not a reason to, in my opinion, respect somebody. Kise da jivan hove, kise na tusi sangat kiti hai, then you understand who that individual is. Otho jaake ote vishwas or respect should be born from that. Not just, you know, somebody that can rattle off dates and quotes and things like that. It's a memorization, again, is a skill. So I think for me, the trajectory was that as I started moving around the world, I started seeing that there was a particular conversation around Sikh Raj, Khalistan, that was being subdued. Most organizations, Gurdwaras, others didn't want to talk about it. We were young and we really wanted to talk about it. And that was the one thing that I found the most disheartening is that we couldn't even talk about it. Like I was in Canada and it was a bit different here in the UK, but I was in Canada in like the early 2000s, and I'm looking around the room and there's many people here that probably weren't even born then, but from the Naujawans. But like in 2003, 2004, people in Toronto side, I was at a meeting and they were saying, well, you know, we can't use the K word if we do this and we can't. And I didn't know what the K word was. So I was just like, what are we talking about? And they're like, Khalistan. I was like, holy God. Like, as in, like, we're in Sikh Sangat and we can't say the word. Dujiyan itte sade dabaab aaya, like, as in at that time. And then this became like a focal point for me that we should bring the conversation back. You agree with it or disagree with it, but why can't we talk about it? Who says we can't talk about it? And a lot of it came back to the Indian state, censorship, what it could potentially mean, and this fear they were actually instilling in people. If you talk about this, this could happen to you. And then Sikhs somehow giving into that fear. And why that happened, like as in there's many reasons, but I think my trajectory from there till now was constantly bringing that conversation back to the table in every space that I went into. And that was in Sikh circles, that was in, you know, Canadian government, That was in human rights organizations. That was all the way through to the United Nations. Anywhere we would go, we would make it a focal point. And I think the reason was because nobody else would talk about it. So we were very much inclined to actually speak about the issue that no one wanted to touch, and then try to bring it back in a conversation where you can see it today. It's not the same anymore. You can talk about it. Everyone can talk about it openly. Before, we'd have doors slammed in our faces, from Gurdwara to Jathebandiyan to anything. And I think this is part of the issue with fear. Like, if I give you an example, like around why we're so persistent on this issue, you mentioned like these death threats and things like that to me. Let's leave that alone for a second. I don't want to make it overly personal, but Jaggie's in jail by Jagdar Singh. You had here in England the West Midlands 3. You had here people's homes being raided, Sikh Nojawans. All these people are born and raised here. And then you had like Gurpreet Singh's situation that just popped up a couple of months ago. All of this in a pattern or a trajectory, when you look at it, if you look at it as a silo, that these things are happening, just to these specific individuals, these individuals are being made examples of to actually strike fear into the rest of the population. And I think you have to look at it that way. Like Bhai Hardeep Singh Shaheedi, Bhai Avtar Singh Khanda Shaheedi, these types of things aren't just one-offs. I think to me, what they want is silence. Like when I say they, I mean the Indian government. I think they want silence from us on issues. And if you give them silence, everything's finished. Like as in like Guru Nanak Padshah never gave Babur silence. And no Guru Sahib gave any of those rulers silence. No Sikh in history gave silence. And there was a cost to that, right? So when you have the cost was Shaheedi, torture, like as in like Sade Sirande Molape, all these things. But if you look at it, we are so proud of these things. These are the things we take back to our children. These are the sakhiyan we tell them. So what happened post 1984, post 1995, and then post 2000 that we just went quiet? Why did we ourselves try to shut that conversation down? And it's an important piece of our contemporary history right now as to where we sit, because we still see Gurdwaras and Sikh organizations that don't want to touch on this topic. And majority of it is what could potentially happen. And this is something that no Sikh that is of any value to our history ever did. They were outright with as in who they were, what they represented, especially Jadon Raj diyan gallan hundiyan si. And I think this is why there's more fear, is because when organizations in Gurdwara themselves shut the conversation down, Sangat, these are their learning centers. They go there for Sangat, they go there for learning, they go there for multiple reasons. But one of the primary things is they go there, and whatever narrative is being struck, a lot of times it starts to sit. So if there's silence on a particular topic, average Sangat that comes into a place will automatically assume that this is something to be afraid of, that we don't need to talk about this, we shouldn't talk about this. There's also the issue of trauma of post-1984 and what it could mean. But this trauma never existed before, in the sense of silence.
As in before 84?
Before 84.
Okay.
Like as in like there's always trauma. Any of these events that are very tragic, there's going to be trauma no matter what. Like as in we're still people at the end of the day. But the trauma didn't result in collective silence of the Panth. The Panth always reacted. And the Panth reacted with the way the Guru would want them to, not with silence. So the reason this, these four, I'll go into my thing around like these death threats that, I get. In July of 2022, the first time I got this was with Bhai Hardeep Singh. Myself and him received them in July of 2022. A year later, he was assassinated, he was Shaheed. And I got a second one in August of 2023, a third one in March of 2025, and a fourth one just a week or two ago. All of them come from like national security in the country. The last one I received was actually extended to my wife and my two children. And I think that's why there was so much noise and all these conversations that were happening about it. Some people came to me and asked that as in like, maybe you shouldn't draw your family into it and expose them. And my general reaction is that like, what's left to expose? If the Canadian law enforcement is saying that they have an informant in their service that has come back to them with credible, information that there's a imminent threat of assassination to me, my wife, and my two children, then what is there left to expose? Like, as in, like, we should be talking about this. If I go silent and I just run away from this, what is that going to accomplish? To get the next person? Personally, I would rather have them come through me, at least. Like, as in not run from this. Like, we've been speaking about this for so long that we have an obligation, like, right now. That as in, like, we have to keep speaking. Otherwise, everything I've just said here right now, it makes no sense either. Jaisi dar ke beh gaye, jaisi chup ho gaye. That's not going to happen. But, like, the death threats, they come from a place, for me, when I look at India, they come from a place of desperation. That if you have to go and kill dissidents in a foreign country, that you're desperate and you're afraid. And it also means that we're doing something right. Otherwise, why would they come? Like, why did they come for Bhai Hardeep Singh or Bhai Avtar Singh Khanda? Something they were doing was right. And then I feel like maybe for me, it's the same way I have to look at it, because Chardi Kala, the pratik je rakhna ya dimag de vich, that we have to stay in Chardi Kala, then you have to take the positive out of all these things. That there's something, when I opened up and I said that, 1984 is sometimes looked at as just nuksan. It gave us so much, right? Because unhone sanu jiunda kar ditta. And these moments, and I said this at Bhai Hardeep Singh's funeral, is that like Edi Shaheedi, and I quoted by Bota Singh and by Garja Singh Sakhi, and I was like, in Shaheedi ne hum sanu jiunda kar ditta. Where there was one Hardeep Singh, there's going to be thousands or hundreds of thousands of them, because people now will not back down. So sometimes it's a reminder to us as well as a Panth, like as in like that these things happen because you're on the right track. And to take it as Guru Di Bakshish, and I'll end this portion here, that Bhai Jaswant Singh Ji Khalra said that after Gurta Gaddi, that perhaps the biggest bakshish that Guru can give a Sikh is Shaheedi. And in that, I feel that as in like anything that's on that trajectory should be taken as bakshish as well. So Shaheedi is like the end of that spectrum. The beginning could be these threats. Then it could be arrests. Then it could be torture. Then it could be, killing of family members potentially. And I'm saying all that because that's what happened in the 80s and 90s. That's what happened when our BBiyan were in Mir Manu's prisons. That as in chalo bacche jehde tote karke galan ਚ har poye. These aren't just things that we speak about. This is practical history that we have. These are the things. And oh BBiyan udoliyan nahi. And they were in those prisons for 5 years. This wasn't a 6-month, 3-month, 2-month type of thing. These women were there for 5 years in Mir Manu's prisons. And nobody broke. 700 Singhs stood with Baba Banda Singh Bahadur. Any one of them could have disowned Sikhi. None of them did. Our history has just kind of shown that as in the face of the most horrible consequences that the world would see, their perception would be like, this is horrible. Sade bandeyan ne bibiyan ne has ke utthe shaheediyan dittiyan. So our perception is different. The way we view the world is different, because we're not here to live long lives. We're here to live in the raza of Guru Sahib and of what they wanted. Ki assi jinna abhyas kar sakde hain, jinni seva kar sakde hain, assi karni hai. Tahi death is out of our control. Like Maharaj ne kya maran lakhaye mandal mein aaye. It's already written. Tahi assi duniya chahe. So for me, it's like as in when you make peace with that to a large degree, then you're okay. And the only way you can make peace with it, you can't just say you made peace with it. Maybe I have, maybe I haven't. Oh, Guru jane ja main jana. But ultimately, the only way you can make peace with it is with Naam. Naam di kamai jehdi hai, like uttam hai at the end of the day. Like as in like, so even in that, like as in like Maharaj says, so padya so pandit bina jinni kamana now. Naam di kamai uttam hai, even more than like this dunyavi padai we have, which is really just a weapon that we can utilize for the Panth when we need it. But like as in Naam jehda naal jana hai. So if you are at peace with the idea that maran lakhaye mandal mein aaye, that your death is written, the only way you will get to that peace is if you have seva, naam, sangat, and you, for me, that you live a Sangharshi life. And, like I'll quote somebody from the Western world on this one, that basically that as in, we avoid risks in life to make it safely to death. It's not much of a life. Risks and danger, the khatra jehda hai, like as in like, like, Sade mathe te mor laiye Guru ne. And I'll say this, that as in like, when you say sawa lakh de vichon ja lakhan de vich je ek Sikh hai, we say this with pride, right? Like te lakh banda bhi khada hai te ek Guru da Sikh hai, like onu pehchan odi hundi hai, right? But if you look at it the flip way, and I heard this from a kathavachik years ago, that if you look at it the other way, thonu roop odo milya jadon thode siran de mull pay si. So your roop was your identity when you could be pehchaned was also the cause of your death at that time. So odon Khalsa de vich they say that had accepted death, and then they would take Amrit and they would come in because your Pashan was your actual death sentence at that time. So it wasn't just about this idea that we can be recognized. It was this idea that we could be recognized, but we couldn't be broken. That ਜਿੰਨਾ ਮਰਜੀ ਜ਼ੋਰ ਲਾ ਲਓ, ਅਸੀਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੂੰ ਸਮਰਪਿਤ ਹਾਂ, ਜਿੰਨਾ ਤਸ਼ੱਦਦ ਕਰ ਲਓ, ਜੇਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਦਿਓ, ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਕਰ ਦਿਓ, that we won't break. So it's this limitation of the idea. Sometimes it doesn't let us go the full distance. And that's why in this modern Sangharsh that we have now with Khalistan, is that there's a limitation that people have placed. We need to break that limitation. We are allowed to speak to whatever Raj principles we want to talk about. And no state, no fear should dictate that.
Thank you so much. And I think one thing you also did there was you bridged the gap in terms of even just the idea of, being blessed with Amrit, the idea of giving your head. You mentioned the identity that comes with that, but on that day would say that we give a head to Guru Sahib Ji, and so that person in that case, they die on that day or they're reborn. So it's again, like now when we look at it, it probably doesn't seem like that in most cases for people in terms of what it translates to. But as you're saying, like that's the reality of it, right? And there's so many questions that come out of this. We speak about things like fear and a few different topics that I had in mind. But just one thing that you touched upon earlier, you spoke about how they've become desperate, the government, and there's something that you must be doing, or the Guru Sikhs that become Shaheedi around you that are doing, that have made the government so desperate to do and put in the measures that they put in place. What do you think? Have you thought about it in terms of what do you think that you're doing, which is right, that is causing you to be a threat to them in order for them to put a threat on your life? What is that one thing, or what are you doing basically that maybe we're not aware of?
Without, I don't know how I'm going to say this without sounding somewhat egotistical. I don't think I'm doing anything different than anyone else. I think ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਜੋ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ ਮਿਲੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਮੁਤਾਬਕ ਜੋ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰਗਟਾਵਾ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, that's why they're coming. So when I started at the beginning, I said that as I'm like, I don't think there's any such thing as just an activist. I think you're a Sikh, and then you have a spectrum of that work that you have to do, that seva that you have to do, and that abhyas you have to do. But in this particular case, that Sikhi da pragtava is that whatever I've learned and whatever I've gained over the years, that it's coming out in the form of, like Raj principles. So jithe Raj di gal hundi hai, they come there. When we have other things, they'll come for those other things as well. Like, don't get me wrong, like as if people ask me, like, oh, so you think they only attack you because you speak about Khalistan and Raj and this, that, and the other. And I was like, for the time being, this is what they're interested in. When they've subdued all those individuals that are outrightly talking about Raj and Khalistan, and they've maybe finished them or silenced them or got them off the page, then they'll come for the next line, which will be Jire Amrit Shikonde hai. Then they'll come for the next line, Jire Langar Vartaunde hai. Then they'll come for the next line, Jire Bachchiyan nu Gurbani Sikhonde hai. Because this ladai that we have in that space geopolitically, it's not a ladai, this is with an idea that is so deep-rooted in that Hindutva philosophy that they only see two things can happen. One is outright annihilation of Sikhs, which is very difficult for anyone to complete, a complete extermination of a people. But the easier thing to do is, instead of annihilation, you go to assimilation. Jede vich thodi boli, sabhyachar, dharam, basically they set you up in a way where, and no offense to anyone, if they take it, chalo, ona di marji hai, but tusi basically kesa tari Hindu hi reh jana, ona de mutabak. Your kirpan will be no better than a janau, and you will be no better than some yogi that was sitting in some mountains back when Guru Nanak Pacha came to this earth. And I sternly believe that that is the idea of Hindutva. I'm not talking about the Hindu community. I'm talking about a philosophy that exists within that space, that this is what they want. Otherwise, there's like this idea around, like, as in, like, our coexistence with others has never been questioned. Like Maharaja Ranjit Singh's Raj, like, we built mandirs, we built masjids, we built educational centers for others. And one of the primary reasons is because of the way Guru Sahib has made us in their roop. Is that ਅਸੀਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਦਾ ਫਰਕ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ. We don't want people to convert to Sikhi if they don't have pyar for Guru Sahib. Like, we're not a conversionist type faith. There's all these reasons why a Sikh, a true Sikh, can't be a Jarvana or an oppressor. Even when you look at the idea of, like, when we speak about Khalistan, like, there's three different elements in there that we won't have time, I won't have time to talk about them today, but I'm just going to mention them, and then maybe, I'll have the opportunity to share my idea. Like, as in, there's Badshai Dawa that's given to us. Like when we say Hamrakat Padshahi Dava, Itko Ja Agalo Pava, that we carry this promise of Padshahi or sovereignty with us. And then we have Raj, Khalsa Raj, right? Jada ke Ast Raj, Srist Raj, Jada ke like as in like Dunya de Raj, yeah. And then we have Khalistan. And Khalistan is basically in today's, if you wanted to create it today, would be kind of within this geopolitical nation state model. It would have boundaries and borders and this, that, and the other. Ultimately, that is not the ideal state of the Panth. The ideal state is Khalsa Raj. And that is something that is more like, as in like, when you say like a utopian world, when we say Begum Parad, we say Halemi Raj. And I won't get into all this, but I wanted to just quickly talk about just Padshahi Dava. Dava sade naale at all times. Guru Sahib gave us Dava, that Padshahi the Dava. And when we were like even these dunyavi things, we get into the worldly politics and things like that, people become MPs or they become ministers or they become whatever for some foreign government. And we think these are our role models now. And if you go back into like our actual period, that asi sab to sanera jada century we say is the best century we had was the 18th century, jehdi 18वीं sadi sigi. And in there's a sakhi about Jahedar Darbara Singh. When the Nawabi was based to Jahedar Darbara Singh, it wasn't given to Nawab Kapoor Singh. Nawab Kapoor Singh was Sevadar Singh. But like, who brought the Nawabi was Bhai Subeg Singh. Jehde baad de vich Chatkriyan te chade gaye si. Bhai Subeg Singh worked for the Mughal Sultanate at the time. He brought the Nawabi to the Sikhs that were in the jungles. Nawabi bhi jangala nu ditti gayi si. It wasn't to the people that were actually working within the state or the community because they weren't a danger. The danger was those ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਿਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਮੁੱਲ ਪਾਏ ਸੀ 80ਵੇਂ ਤੇ 90ਵੇਂ ਸਾਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ 80s and 90s ਜਿਹੜਾ ਦਹਾਕਾ ਲੰਘਿਆ ਹੈ the 80s and 90s the ਸਰਕਾਰ was afraid ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਿਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ 25 30 50 ਲੱਖ ਦੇ ਮੁੱਲ ਪਾਏ ਸੀ the people that had prices on their heads like Baba Gurbani Singh Manochal, Bhai Sukhdev Singh Babar or any of these individuals, they were the ones they wanted. That was the first line they needed to destroy. Just like back then they had to get to Darbara Singh, Jahedar Darbara Singh. And when the Nawabi, after the Onane Subeg Singh nu tankha lai, which is like, seva kar, like as in like whatever, basically why? Because tu ona da ya, tera murala nata, where I started this conversation, tera murala nata, Guru Granth Guru Panth de naal nahi hega, you're working for a foreign sarkar. Ye Khalsa di sarkar ya. Tu ithe aaya, nimana hoke, like as in aa teri tankha ya. Then they brought Subeg Singh back and Subeg Singh offered the Nawabi. And Jahedar Darbara Singh's line in Panth Prakash is ਅਸੀਂ ਨਵਾਬੀ ਕਦ ਚਾਹੇ ਲਹੀ ਹਮਕੋ ਬਚਨ ਸਤਿਗੁਰੂ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹੀ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਨਵਾਬੀ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਦੋਂ ਕੀਤੀ ਹੈ ਸਾਡੇ ਬਚਨ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਉਹ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹੀ ਦੇ ਆ will carry the promise. And even ਜਦੋਂ ਉਹ ਨਵਾਬ ਕਪੂਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਨੂੰ ਲਿਆਂਦਾ ਗਿਆ ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਨਵਾਬੀ ਪੰਜਾਂ ਦੇ ਜੁੱਤੀ ਦੀ ਨੋਕ ਤੇ ਲਾ ਕੇ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ 3 ਮਹੀਨਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਉਹ ਰਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ then he just got the title of Nawab afterwards. But these ideas that are within us, like as in like these frame what our thinking should be when we're actually visit in this world. So if we're constantly looking at like, like the British government, the Canadian government, the US government, or like the United Nations, that inna ne sada kuch sawarna hai. This is a fundamental mistake on our part. Ultimately, it's just politics. And in geopolitics, economics will win every time. Economics, trade, these things, and like geopolitical like positioning. There's a mutual sharing of interests at some point between two parties. But to think that the UK government has the Sikh interest at heart, that would be a folly, just like any other country in the world. Politically, we have to be astute enough to actually capitalize on when those mutual interests intersect. And then you can actually gain something maybe out of that situation. But Sadi Ot Asra is just Guru Granth and Guru Panth. So I think like as in when we speak about like this idea of why they come, I think when I mention all these individuals throughout history, I don't compare myself to them, but I think they will come for anyone in the future, in the Vartaman, in the present right now, who actually dares to speak against them, who actually raises this issue in a space where they're afraid, which is like to me is like right now is geopolitically the United Nations and in international agencies, but also those that can galvanize people on the ground in Punjab and move them. And they are constantly always watching that as to who in Punjab is moving. They're constantly testing us in Punjab. That's why every few months you see somebody get shot. That's why every few months kisi da fake encounter kar dende hai, like Naujawan Ranjit Singh just a few weeks ago. To them, it's almost like a temperature check of how far will they go. And I think these are the things that the Panth, when we start looking at them in silos, this is problematic. And if I can just say one more thing, and I know I'm probably talking a lot, but I want to touch on this because I think it's important. If you look at Sikh governance now, If you look across the world, like I'm going to list off a few things, and then you just, as an individual, you don't need to say anything. Just think of what the first thing that comes up in your mind when you think of this thing, when I say it, right? Gurdwara committees, Sikh organizations, Shromani Gurdwara Prabandhak Committee, any Sikh Samprada from Damdami Taksal to Akhand Kirtani Jatha to Dal Panth to anyone, Akal Tak Sahib, or to stop there. Every one of those institutions, every one of those layers of governance, every individual that I've come across has been like, one term they use is corrupt. So basically, the Indian government at some level has succeeded in corrupting every governance space that we have as a Sikh structure. We had one thing left. We had Sarvat Khalsa. Ovi, like as in like, Oda Majak Banata. So when we're in a situation of this dire kind of like need where we need to do something, the state is working to weaken us by weakening these institutions, instituting their own individuals. You know, why is there a fight with the RSS in Punjab all the time? Why is all this conflict happening? They are moving towards assimilation. Assimilation is much harder to figure out, to challenge, and to fight. When somebody comes head on at you, you know, oh sawa lakh hon, sade, you know, 40 hi hon, we fought. It's very easy to see the enemy, like as in that's them, that's us. The assimilation process is people that look just like me and you, that are sitting across from each other, and one's indoctrinating the other, and they're being funded from behind, and the whole purpose is for them to actually look like us, behave like us, speak like us, and then break us from Guru Granth and Guru Panth, and take us closer back into that Hindutva fold. So the reason I speak to that is because if that is the primary danger to everything right now, our existence is on the line. And this isn't the first time. Guru Mehr kan, like as in like asi bipar di nahi jande, and Guru di pratit sade te rogi. But we have to do something. Sanu vi udam karan di lod hai. Maharaj Singh de udam karat sital man pe marag chalat sagal dukh gaye. Like as in uddam karna padna, we have to do something. We can't just leave it all in Maharaj's hands. No generation of Sikhs has just kind of like stood by the side and just relied on Ardas alone. Ardas da eh hai ki eh nahi ki Maharaj sanu bacha lo. Ardas eh hai ki Maharaj sanu sadi Sikhi ke sang nib jave, sanu dolan to bacha leo. Not physically, but sanu dolan to bacha leo, that we stay in your raza, we stay on your marag, we stay on your path regardless of what might come. And I think these are things that we have to latch back onto. Then the idea of fear, attachment, and all these pieces, they start dwindling away a little bit. They start withering away. Because then we understand our purpose, that this is something we're going to wake up from. And then when we wake up, are we ready to meet basically our Creator? And that's the fundamental question for me, for you, for any Sikh in the world, is that if you were going to die in like 5 minutes from now, are you ready? And all of us should be helping each other prepare for that. Because the fundamental truth is like marna. That everything else, like jiona chutya, marna satya. And that isn't in a sad way. That's if you love somebody, if I love my wife and my children, my primary concern with them is how they live their life and how they kama sikhi. So when their time does come, marna khai mandal mein aaye, I don't know when that's going to be. When their time comes, that they're ready and prepared when they meet, like, you know, Akal Purkh on the other side. And then maybe jehda auna jana ona da bandh hoga. Maybe they'll have some like Gursikh Parvar de je mud ke ਉਹਨਾਂ ki seva karni hai Panth di. But these are the fundamental spiritual ideas that Sikhs believe. So the ultimate gift you can give to somebody is that Sangat, is Naam, and is Seva, because those are the gifts that will go with them.
Thank you. And you brought this back in a full circle when it comes to fear, because it's that topic of fear of the mind, you know, fear of our relationships and the fear of loss. And then in some cases, which you touched on, is the fear of the Guru. And, you know, trying to do our best that if one day we are to face Guru Sahib Ji, then, you know, what part did we play? What seva did we do when it comes to the Panth and when it comes to speaking the truth or living the truth as well? Just to touch upon this in a bit more detail, if you don't mind, Ji, in terms of where you were at the age of 13 to 17, where you turned away from Sikhi, to where you are today, where, if I'm generalizing, maybe someone at the age of 13 to 17 doesn't want to die. They have complete fear of many things in life. You mentioned things like, you know, Abhyas, you know, Naam Simran. if you can just paint a little bit more of a clear picture just for practical steps for Sangat, because like if I'm walking this path, I've got fears, and if this was me, especially when I first started learning about Sikhi, the idea of Shaheedi, someone losing their life is very scary to the average person, just being honest. So how do we bridge that gap? What steps can we take as in Bhai, you're facing this face on, right? What are things that Sangat can do? Because it sounds like death is always a topic that nobody wants to speak about, right? Let alone having to face death right in front of you. If there's anything you could share with the Sangat.
Well, first I'll start off with saying that I never said I wasn't scared of death.
Okay. Well, thanks for that.
That would be highly egotistical. And me saying that is probably egotistical. It's hard to figure out, but we're coming up to actually this month 300 Sala for Bhai Tara Singh Vaan Shaheedi. So sometimes I just go back to those stories and Sakhiyan just to kind of remember who we are as a people. It helps because it gives you this anak and this like jigara to actually continue on. And then like in his Sakhi, like at the end when he's calling on the Sikhs that were with him to now face, thousands of the Mughal Fauj that was coming, and there was like 22 of them in that. And like I always move back to Panth Prakash because I just find it as it's so inspiring. And even its writer, like as in Bhai Ratan Singh Pangu, is actually Shaheed Bhai Ratan Singh Pangu. That as in like we see him as a Lakhari, but in the Anglo-Sikh wars he gave Shaheedi as well. So when I was saying before, like the spectrum is huge. He wasn't just a Lakhari, like he was a warrior as well, and Shaheedi bhi deti Panth. But in what he wrote about Bhai Tara Singh Vaan was Tao Singh Ji un kehi sunaye. That then Bhai Tara Singh Ji, उन्होंने एक गल कही सारे नूं सुनाउण लई like देह पवित्र होए शास्त्र लगाए. That ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਲਈ this body ਇਹ ਉਦੋਂ ਪਵਿੱਤਰ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ at its supreme level ਪਵਿੱਤਰ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਾਸਤਰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਆ, ਇਹਨੂੰ ਵੱਟ ਪੈਂਦੇ ਆ, ਇਹ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਕੰਮ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਆ. Like whatever the thought process behind these things is, it's truly inspiring. That you have shaheeds in our Panth that have said that as in like my body will be purified when it's being cut by the enemy because I'm giving it for Guru Granth and Guru Panth. So when you come to death, it's like inspiring pieces like this that were individuals, I don't want to say just like us, but there were Guru Sikhs that were amongst us. And then ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ ਲਈ ਹੈ ਸਾਹਿਬਜ਼ਾਦਿਆਂ ਦੇ ਕੋਲੋਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ ਲਈ ਸੀ ਆਪਣੇ ਦਾਦਾ ਜੀ ਤੋਂ, ਗੁਰੂ ਤੇਗ ਬਹਾਦਰ ਤੋਂ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਤਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਕਿ ਆਪਣੇ ਦਾਦਾ ਜੀ ਤੋਂ ਇਹ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ ਲਈ ਸੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਅਰਜਨ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਤੋਂ. Like as in ਚਲੋ ਗੁਰੂ ਤਾਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੇ, like as in that relationship, ਉਹ ਤਾਂ ਇੱਕੋ ਹੀ ਜੋਤ ਆ. But like in that kind of idea, the idea that this fear needs to depart. And doubt casts the most fear, I think, in individuals. That when we look at my family, my career, my work and all these types of things. And when you say my once, like as in like, it's hankar, that ye sada kuch hega hai, to sara kuch guru da deta hai. So I think these are easy ideas to talk about, but to live them is very difficult for me at least. Like I don't know how others do with it, but it's very difficult. But I samjha myself. I ardas karke, I samjha myself. I read Sikh history, I samjha myself. Gurbani padh ke samjha myself, and then I live another day. Or I would say I move on this path, whatever I can, another day. And that's, I think, the only way to do it. Like as in like this idea that we'll be able to get away from fear. Like as in like, it's hard. Like as in like Maharaj even says, I see we use a term like nirpal, right?
Hanji.
Maharaj says, bin naave nirpal ko nahi. Right? Like, so naam to bina to tusi nirpal ho hi nahi sakde. So when we're talking about fear, that naam is the only thing that breaks fear. Abhyas chedaya, like as in it will break fear because it will remind you that this is not real. And once that realization sets in, then you're actually sometimes kale to leave here. I'll give you one sakhi, not a sakhi, it's just a story, it's a personal thing. In 2012, I was in Europe and I met a Bujurg Singh who was 70 years old at that time. He's no longer around. And he was in this, like he helped in the Sangharsh, like as in Punjab. And he said something to me that was like really, I was just asking him about some stories. He said to me in conversation, he's like, I wish I died when I was 40. And it was a very odd comment to hear somebody say that I wish I died 30 years ago. So I didn't know what I just said, like, why would you say that? Like, what would be the difference then? Like, if you died at 40, you got 30 more years to like. And he said something really powerful. He was just like, I was at my peak at 40. And he's like, he goes, jada nitnem si, mera amrit vela, meri rehat. And he goes, everything was on point. He goes, main Sangharsh de vich apni seva kar raha si. And he goes, I was putting everything on the line. And he goes, afterwards I got sick. He goes, chonkada nahi reha. He goes, nitnem nahi. He goes, jada hai, oh prana reha. Like, the panch granthi nitnem to just panch baniya tak aa gaya main. Amrit vela, he goes, jaag nahi aa rahi hun. He goes, he just started listing off all these things. And I'm looking at him, this guy wanting to shave 30 years off of his life because he felt at 40 he was ready to die. And now at 70, he was worried about dying. So it's also one of those things that kind of reminds us that as in like, there's no such thing as you completing this journey until Maharaj completes it for you. So there's no like stepping back or slowing down. It's like just moving forward. And I feel that's the same thing with Seva and Sangharsh as well. There's no such thing as saying that, oh, I'm done. Baba Deep Singh Seva was never done. 75 saal di umar de vich bhi khanda vaya. So it was never done. So in us, those should be inspirations for us, our Naujawans that are coming up, that Seva and Simran, there is no end. Lagatar jinna char akhirla swas nahi khatam hunda, it chaldiyan rehniyan. And we have to be actually practical in those terms to be like, as in like to accept that you're never really done. And then like, as in when you're saying like from 13 to 17 being afraid to being now in my 40s now, and I would say still being afraid of many things because you have no idea. And this was, saying like, as in like, Chardi Kala, and it's like the way they've created this whole thing. To me, it's a beautiful thing. The moment you or me think even that we are ready to die, that's hankar. That ਅਸੀਂ ਕੁਝ ਬਣ ਗਏ ਹਾਂ, ਅਸੀਂ ਕੁਝ ਪ੍ਰਾਪਤ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ ਆ. Like, as in like, these types of things to me are really interesting because like Maharaj has put so many little tests everywhere for us to test us to see like, as in like, are you truly like, as in like ready? And we just don't know. So I leave it to Maharaj's hands that as in like, jo tusi sanu kiya hai karan lai, try your best. And ਅਸੀਂ ਬੱਚੇ ਹਾਂ, ਅਸੀਂ ਬਾਲਕ ਹਾਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ. And then as a parent, like we always say is that like, as in, whether they succeed at something or not, that's baad di gal hai, did they make the effort? And I think looking at Maharaj as not somebody that's here to punish you and somebody who's here to support you and love you and guide you. So if you tried and you tried and you tried and all your efforts, your uddam was there, like why do we feel that after this life when we go into the next life, that when we face Maharaj, that they would be punishing us for trying? Now, along the way, the people that are most afraid usually are the ones that have many skeletons in the closet. And they show themselves one way and they behave and act another way. And that's for them and Maharaj to figure out. Like, as in, like, I can't comment on that for me or for anyone else for that matter. But I do feel like the idea that me sitting here and saying that, hey, when I was 13 to 17, I was like scared of dying because I was away from Sikhi. And then I kind of came in on my own. And now I'm sitting here in front of you saying that I'm not afraid to die. I don't think that would be, that would be very disingenuous of me. That you have these thoughts because the fear I feel is not necessarily about my family or dying and then, not watching my kids grow up or, get married and having grandkids and all this. To me, that's not necessarily the fear. I have a different fear, which is that if I go, how will I be judged? That have I accomplished the things that I should be accomplishing day to day? And to me, that's inspiring. It makes me actually want to do more. But ultimately, I think all these things they should be inspiration for us. That when you have these thoughts in your mind that I could be better, I could be better, I could be better, it's not to say that I'm horrible. It's to say that I love Guru Sahib so much, I love this Panth so much that I can give more, Tan man tan sab kuch arpan le asi tayar hoiye. And again, I'm not talking about me, I'm just saying generally what Sikhs should be trying to do. That as in like, that's where we should be at. That as in, this is a never-ending kind of like seva, simran journey for us. And it goes with us right to the last breath.
Right, Guruji. And you spoke about the idea of, I guess, fear of the Guru versus the fear of the mind and the things that we see in the world. And just touching upon that next topic, you've already mentioned it about moho, attachment, and speaking about your family as well. How do you navigate that space, especially for Sangat here today that may want to do more seva in the future, and they know that comes with a cost of potentially, the people that we love, whether that's just a threat, not going any further, just verbal threat or something as small as anything on social media. How do you navigate that space, and what was your experiences that you could share with the Sangat when it comes to moho attachment?
I think there's a huge difference between like having pyar for someone, like Guru Sahib had pyar for their Sikhs, like as in like, and they still always will and do, but like that vichhoda, like as in like it will draw pain out of you. But in that vichhoda, if you lose sight of why you're here and our purpose as Sikhs, ote, I would refer to that as mo. That mo, that as in like you can't actually move on, that you basically become paralyzed because of some loss or something that you didn't gain. That type of mo is destructive. Pyar is not destructive. Like when we talk about even our Sangharsh at the end of the day, like as in like our Sangharsh is pyar di bunyad te banaya. Pyar for Guru Granth, pyar for Guru Panth, pyar for Sarvata Pala. Hatred and anger, nafrat te krodh, these are dissipating emotions over time. You can only hold on to them for so long. Then you're just jiddi at the end of the day. That over time they dissipate. Like how long can you hate and how long can you be angry at something? Pyar is an emotion that over time, as long as there's not betrayal. And that betrayal, Guru Sahib will never betray their Sikh. So a pyar between a Guru and their Sikh is just going to expand. So our Sangharsh's bunyad is also the same. Like as in it can't be something that's built off of hatred or fear or anger or even revenge at the end of the day. It's none of those things. Asita, like as in like when even Masa Rangad hove ja Indra hove, like our people say asi soda laya, asi ek galti nu sudarya, right? And Guru Hargobind Parchaar in that Sakhi when he chops basically Pende Khan in half, like as in like that was a moment of Sikhya as well. So all these things, like as in like they're reflective ideas, like as in like when you just take one story and you don't actually connect it to a historical pattern, they seem like they're just like these little silos. But there's actually like a lesson all the way through this trajectory. So like when I look at like as in like these like idea of like mo and attachment, like I have a wife, I have 2 children, like I raise these children, like as in like obviously, and I have a deep connection and love with them. But I try to remind myself that these are gifts given to me by Guru Sahib, and they're his gifts, or I should say their gifts to take whenever their time is. It's hard, like as a parent, to reconcile with that. But that's what I was saying before, is like I try to tell myself this, you do ardas, and you try to make sure that if this time is coming, then I should look to Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj, jinhone apne putra var dite. I was actually I was watching a video the other day of Bhai Swaran Singh. He's the father of Bhai Surjit Singh, he's a Shaheed in the 80s. And they asked him, like, as in, like, you lost so many people in your family in this Sangharsh, that aren't you angry? Aren't you upset that you lost all these people? And it was such a fast response. And he's basically 80 years old. And he goes, he's like, Fir ki hoya? He goes, Sade ghar de 14 ji jehde shaheed ho gaye. That, so what if 14 people out of our family became shaheeds? Like, shaheedi ta Guru di bakshish hai. This is him talking. And then he goes on to say that basically 3 out of his 4 sons were shaheed. And then he goes on to say, he goes, Maharaj da, he goes, harek din shukrana karda hai ke sade ghar nu ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਚੁਣਿਆ ਹੈ ਸੇਵਾ ਲਈ. When you start looking at your people and you start looking at how our people have responded to this, you automatically, nothing's happened to me. And this is the thing that I always try to remind other people. They're threatening, they're doing this, and something might happen, but it might not. But it shouldn't change the way I behave. That I cannot change my behavior, my attitude, my actions, my speech, just because an outcome that hasn't even happened yet. Otherwise, the entire lineage that we would talk about for our people, it would be completely the opposite of what it is now. And then we would be looking at that as a nuksan. I, as a parent, as a father, as a husband, if something happened to my family, I would be deeply hurt because of the pyar I have for them and that vichhoda that would happen. But I would, on the other side, hope that Maharaj would give me the strength to do ardas after and thank them, that as in like whatever gift you gave me, you've taken back. And the time that I got to spend with them was really what actually helped me drive this portion of my life forward and do any little seva that I could do for the Panth. So I think in that, it's Sangat that's helped me. It's Sanghs and Singhaniya that are around me that kind of keep me grounded as well. And I think the fear not necessarily will go away, but the acceptance that this moh will not guide me to a place where I will back off. Then I've actually failed. That my pyar for my family, I don't believe is moh, and it's not attachment. In order to break that, I think, Sangat diyan ardaasan, Sangat da sehjog, Sangat diyan seesan te pyar, like as in like those are the things that will help guide anyone, not me, but it could be anyone in the Sangat that may go through something like that will guide them through that space. Ek duje de asi like as in sahara ban ke, it's much, much easier to get through these things. But we should never forget ke jo asi putran de dani di gal karte hain. When we look at Baba Banda Singh Bahadur and his 5-year-old's heart being ripped out, like this is the bacche jehde tote tote pa ke sadi bibiyan ne galan ch haar pwaye. All these aren't just stories. These are lessons. These are things to carry every step of the way for us. And I think like I think living within the world and not being of the world is a big part of that. Like as in like we can't just be here and think that we're just like everyone else. Ek aur pe ho Khalsa, ek aur sansar. We were built for something else. And I take that personally very seriously, that those words aren't just words. That as in like what Guru Sahib gave us, it's not going to just go away. And one thing that like guides me is like we ask sometimes questions of Guru Sahib, and why things happen and this, that, and the other. I remember a question in Tankhanama that Bhai Nandlal Ji asked Guru Gobind Singh, and he asked him basically, Maharaj Sanu Raj Miluga, because some people would be like, oh, what if you don't see the Raj, and was it all worth it, and this, that, and the other. And I think the questions come from a place of maybe of pyar, but maybe of some level of like unsurety, but also from a place of concern from Sangat when I talk to them. And then, like I always go back to Bhai Nandlal Ji, like as in like, it's not for me to decide that, but they asked Maharaj, like as in Raj, kidan da hoga, Raj miluga Sikhanu, and in Tankhanama, Guru Gobind Singh, Maharaj says to na, suno Nandlal eho saach, pargat karaun apna Raj, char varan ek varan karaun, Vaheguru ka jaap chupaun, chade tudang odave baaj, turak de kar jave paaj, sawa lakh se ek ladaun, chade seng tas mukt karaun. In all of that, उन्होंने वर्ना दा नाश भी करना है, like the caste system, inequality, ये साडा राज होगा, वाहिगुरु दा जाप भी होगा, उत्थे सारेयां दे नाल जेह्ड़े बराबरी दे नाल उत्थे गल होगी, ते when at the very last line, like सवा लाख से एक लड़ाऊं, चढ़े ਸਿੰਘ तस मुक्त कराऊं, इन थोड़ी मुक्ति भी इहदे विचों ही होनी है, इस राज दे विचों. So basically Maharaj gave a response to Bhai Nandlal Ji in Tankhanama that encapsulated everything that we proclaim to be fighting for right now as well. So I draw my personal inspiration back from our itihas, our granths, obviously Guru Maharaj themselves, wherever I can. But I think those are the things that break attachment. Those are the things that strike down fear. Like as in Maharaj says, Nirpao pe gur charni lage ek ram naam adara, ke nirpao ਐਵੇਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਬੰਦਾ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ. ਜੇ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਹੋਣਾ ਆ, ਨਿਰਭਉ ਭੈ ਗੁਰ ਚਰਨੀ ਲਾਗੇ, ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਚਰਨ ਲੱਗਣਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਆ. ਪਰ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਇੱਕ ਰਾਮ ਨਾਮ ਅਦਾਰਾ, ਯੂ ਹੈਵ ਟੂ ਪ੍ਰਣ ਕਰਨਾ ਪੈਣਾ ਬੰਦੇ ਨੂੰ ਕਿ ਇੱਕ ਰਾਮ ਨਾਮ, ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ ਦਾ ਨਾਮ, ਉਹੀ ਸਹਾਰਾ ਆ ਸਾਡਾ ਇਨ ਲਾਈਫ, ਐਂਡ ਨਥਿੰਗ ਐਲਸ ਵਿਲ ਗੋ ਵਿਥ ਅਸ. ਇਟ ਸਟਾਰਟਸ ਫਰਮ ਇੱਕ ਰਾਮ ਨਾਮ ਅਦਾਰਾ, ਦੈਨ ਗੁਰ ਚਰਨੀ ਲਾਗੇ, ਦੈਨ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਪੈ, ਤਾਂ ਬੰਦਾ ਨਿਰਭਉ ਹੋਊਗਾ. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ.
Well, thank you so much for sharing those gems when it comes to moho. Even the point you made about like family members and that being a gift from Guru Sahib Ji, that can be a gift that Guru Sahib Ji can take away at any time, right? It reminds me of the Sakhi of when the Vadde Sahibzade they become Shaheed, and some itihas Garja that Guru Sahib Ji uchaars the Shabad from Sukhuni Sahib, jiski bastis aage rakhe, Prabh ki aagya mane mat hai. So it just reminded me of that. And even just the question about prem and moho, what is the difference? And what I took away from what you were saying, Ji, correct me if I'm wrong, that love, prem allows us to move forward, but moho holds us back. And that's what I took away from that. So thank you for sharing that. Just one last question. Sorry, I'm prodding a bit too much here. But how is your family reacting to this, and how is your wife and your kids, if you don't mind me asking? How do they feel about this, being in this situation, and also in your wider family as well?
I'm actually glad you asked that. My wife, I think, is stronger than I am in all of this space. She's ever since we're both the same. I would say she's stronger than me. She's probably braver than I am in many ways. She listens to whatever I say, and then she'll question me on it as well afterwards as to like, why didn't you go further? Why didn't you say this? I don't really see her as being afraid of this. She absolutely is a part of this. If anything, she might be actually relishing in the fact that now she's got one too, that it's not just me anymore, that she's just... I'm joking, but I'm probably not joking. I feel like she's not here, so... But I think with her, she's like the backbone of this family. But we had decided she does seva in her own right, like as in like with women's groups there, like Bibian, like as in my 13-year-old daughter, we jokingly now call her Bibi Nasib Kaur Khalsa, because she's very much so into like as in like at the academy and doing like standing up and talking now and things like that, that she wants to be heard. And like as in like, so the bacche have always been around this. We've never held anything back from them. But family is family. Like as in like outside of our family, we've had others come to us and say that you need to give these kids a normal home. That, this isn't like normal at all. Like, their dad's going to be killed and it's all over the news. And like, kids are talking to them at school that, this normalization of the Sikh home. And me and my wife were talking once and, like she mentioned something to me, which I think is very profound. I'm not going to take credit for it because this is more her. And her thing is that like maybe we are normal and maybe they're abnormal. Maybe this is what a normal Sikh household is supposed to look like. I say things like I just said before, Jinnah de sirande mull pe, like as in the sarkar comes for those individuals. And then she's like, maybe we're doing something right. And this is why I've been saying this all along, is because, this conversation with my wife, that we're not abnormal. Like I definitely don't think we are. Like as in like, what is normalcy when it comes to Sikh parenting? What this world that we live in out here, what are you going to do? Take them to like ballet and dance and music and like a piano and whatever else, music and this, that, and the other, and sports and this, that, and the other. Our kids play sports. Our kids do go to like Tanti Saj Kirtan class. Our kids do a lot of things. But maybe the normalcy was supposed to be that this mahal was supposed to be normal. And I'll give you something, and it's probably shooting myself in the foot here, and you might be like, well, I'm never talking to this guy again. But it might be that we wouldn't be sitting here if this was normal. But it should be. Sikhan de le je khatra nahi haga, then what are we? That means we're not actually Baghi. Baghi is to exist outside of the law. Baghi is to be a danger to the Jarvana, the tyrant, the oppressor. So if we're not Baghi, then what are we? We can't be docile. Like Guru Sahib never wanted that from us. So then, ਅਸੀਂ ਕੀ ਬਣ ਗਏ then? Like it's a fair question. So my wife's response to this whole idea is that this is something that normalizes us. This is something that a normal Sikh household should be prepared for. That we're nothing special at the end of the day. But the problem is that this is not normal anymore, and a vast majority of the Sikh Panth sees this as, oh my God. And we see almost to the point where we see Shaheedi as, oh my God. And this narrative that 1984 was a nuksan, oh my God. And then all the things that are supposed to breathe life into us, those things are abnormal. And normalcy is literally living a long life, raising children, paying your taxes, and going quietly from this world. And Guru Nanak came roaring into this world, as in what we're told. So what they say if we don't roar back when danger comes. So I think these are things for me that as in how my wife is taking it. I have little concern for how she's taking it. She just kind of like reconcile with me that as in she said to me after Paji Hardeep Singh Shaheedi, and I've said this a few times in different spaces, that she said to me that I've respected your work and I've respected what you've done, and if you take even an inch of a step back now, that I'll lose all respect for you. That it's only moving forward now, whatever that brings. And those things are inspirational when they come from home. And I know she means it. Like she never once said to me, why are you doing this? Look at where we're at now. We got a warning to our family on Sunday. By Friday, I flew out of the country like it was nothing. Our home has been normalized. Even my bache know everything. Like as in they're old enough, 13 and 17, 18. Like as in they're around that age. And they know everything that's going on. They've seen the news, they watch everything. And I hope they're proud of the fact that as in our family is existing like this. And I think they do, they are. And I think that's because of their Sangat as well. So in a long format, my point in answering the question was that Parivar takda taaya because like there's some kirpa from somewhere that's happening. I don't feel this is natural. But my wife's family, her mata, she was born into an Amritari family. They were a Sangharshi family as well from 1978 onwards. So she has a lot of drirta in her that I found way later. But she's been raised in a very, Sikh home that is very Sangharshi and has a historical component to it as well. So to me, I look to her a lot of the times for strength. That if she's strong, like as in like, and she always is, then asi bhi torda rehna.
And I think that's very inspiring for all of us today, that it's not just Bhai Sahib Ji that's doing great seva, but even in his household as well. Especially for the Pena, the Bibia here today as well, to see that, that everyone can play a part in the seva as well. And this is a side topic because we spoke about this before we went live, travel. Right, so you travel a lot, you're all around the world in different places. You come to the UK quite a bit as well, G. How's your travel? How's your travel experience going to different airports and getting into different countries, if you don't mind sharing that?
I don't know if you were going to ask, so I'll just be bluntly honest. I've been, you have Schedule 7 in this country.
What does that mean?
Schedule 7 is like under the anti-terror laws, counter-terrorism in the UK, that basically it's a law that's used to detain somebody. They strip you of your devices, anything you have to give your password. You don't have the right to remain silent. They have 6 hours to interrogate you on whatever topic they like. You have to answer their questions. And this is all built into their act, the Schedule 7 Act. So I've been to Schedule 7 10 times in the last 2 years entering the UK.
10 times?
Yeah.
My God.
So the last time was just last week. And it's not a big deal though. Like, and this is what I was talking about before. They sit you down, they talk to you, like as in like, it's not civil, I would say, like as in it's still an interrogation. Other Sikh activists in the UK go through it as well. Like as in I know that they have as well. But the idea behind it is to figure out like basically what are you doing, who are you meeting, where are you going, what are you saying, or they have things on you that you've said in the past. They want to basically try to and what they're saying is they're trying to make sure that you're not here to say or do something that would jeopardize the safety of UK citizens. And to me, it's just a fact-gathering opportunity. And I have nothing to hide, so it's like, Carlo, like as in like I end up just like spent talking about Sikh philosophy with them for 6 hours. One time was actually really funny because I get, as you can probably tell, I don't know when to shut up, so I just keep going. So our 6 hours was running out and I could see them looking at each other and I was like, I can sign something if you want another 2 hours. Like I was like, we're just getting to the good stuff right now. So Ote, if you show dar and you're nervous, you're this, that, and the other, it's like, what do I have to be nervous about? I am who I am. What are you gonna do? You're gonna ban me from your country, Carlo? But there's nothing to ban over. Like as in, so when I go in, my thing is that pucho, like ask me, like as in like, I kind of want to know what you're asking because to me, it helps me figure out like, what are you worried about with me? And a lot of times it's literally nothing. Like, I think it's just a fact-finding mission. The last few times, especially this last time when I came, a lot of the conversation was around my safety in the UK, but also if I'm in public spaces in the UK, if I'm speaking in the public, if I'm taking trains, if I'm traveling or whatever it is, that other members of the UK community could be at risk because of my whereabouts. So, if I'm in like a mall walking around because I want to go shopping for some reason, which I don't, by the way, like as that, somebody tried to harm me, somebody else could be harmed as well, which is fair point. Like that can happen. It's one of the reasons why in Canada, like I go to the Gurdwara Sahib. I go to Sikh events, and I don't go to anything else. I don't go to my kids' school events. I don't go to their practices. I don't go to their games. I don't go to public places. I'm in where my Sangat is and Gurdwara Sahib is, or where somebody's invited me. I will go there, but I don't go anywhere else. And it wouldn't be fair to people if something did happen and they were like innocent bystanders. So they wanted to speak to me about that as well, as to like, this is another reason, like, that we want to talk to you about this. And they spent a lot of time on that. Like, as in, like, are you safe here? And I was like, you tell me. Like, as in, you're the intelligence agency. Like, how do I know if I'm safe here or not? Oh, you're tasking me if I'm safe. Like, I don't know. And, they, like, as in, they do this, I would call it, like, questioning. Some people will call it harassment. But it's not just me. And I've never wanted to make this thing about, like, as in, like, I'm some special in some way. But these things happen. I think these are things that shouldn't deter people, though. So the only reason, like, you asked the question, I wouldn't have brought it up, but like, as in, you asked the question. So the reason I'm speaking to it now is these are, like, in some way, shape, or form, the Indian government passing on, these disinformation, false narratives about Sikhs in the West, in the diaspora, to have them kind of like strike fear into us. Like, somebody goes through a Schedule 7, it's very intrusive. They rip open everything you have, your bags, like anything you have in them. They can keep whatever they want. They can take your devices. They don't have to give them back. Financially, they can create problems for you like that. They can create problems just like as in from a privacy perspective. Simple things like your kids' pictures and faces and this, that, and the other. Things that no other individual should have access to. Like, they just take everything. And then they just basically, you have to give your passcodes or they can like arrest you. They download everything, blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not overly afraid of that. Like, as in, like, you figure it out after the first couple of times as to what they're going to do. And then every time I enter the country here, you just become prepared. So nobody's there ever to pick me up because it's a time waste. Basically, for me, it's like when I get to the other side, I will give you a ring and then chakliyo. So you figure it out. But I think when you look at that and, all the things we've talked about in this podcast so far, if that's enough to strike fear into a Sikh and make them stop speaking, acting, we have a problem. And that's fundamentally what I'm trying to get to here, is that these scare tactics will exist every step of the way. And the more you get involved, the scare tactics will go higher, all the way to these threats. And when I said at the beginning that if it's a spectrum of bakshish, our nazariya has to be different. We have to see this as we're doing something right. Yehi bakshish hai at the end of the day. And I'm way over here. Like Paji Hardeep Singh or our Shaheeds from their spectrum is way over there. ਜੇ ਇੰਨੀਆਂ ਕੀ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੇਰੇ ਵਰਗੇ ਨੇ ਡਰ ਜਾਣਾ ਹੈ ਫਿਰ ਮੈਂ ਸਿੱਖ ਕਾਹਦਾ at the end of the day. So I want people to talk about this stuff as in like this isn't what should be limiting you from doing things. Them's trying to strike fear into you. You should take that as a moment of pride as an individual, as a Sikh, that as in like ਮੈਂ ਕੁਝ ਸਹੀ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜਰਵਾਣਾ ਆ wants to silence me. That I must be on the right path at that point. And I think those are important conversations among Sangat as well, that these things aren't things that should make you go quiet. These things should make you speak more. Like, as in, like, these are the things that actually validate the fact that Sada Sangharsh jada hai, sahi raat hai. Sade Singh Singhaniya jade hai, they're doing the correct seva. They're pinpointing the right leverage points around the world right now. I have no zero mayusi in me right now. It's like I see nothing but Chardi Kala everywhere. And it's like, as in, people will be like, oh, we're splintered, we're split, we're this. And ekta jedi hai, siddhant di hundi hai. Bandiyan di nahi hundi. Like, ekta, mine, your ekta is what? Our pyar is what? Is Guru Granth Guru Panth. Ultimately, uste asi ekta banoni hai. But to say that, hey, me and you have to fundamentally agree on like how we make Kara Prashadi Deg, or whether we read Ragmala or not, or whether we do this, that, and the other. Do gallan jehdiyan hai, those are vishay jehde a sanu todnde a right now. जोड़न वाले विषय जड़े हो तुम्हारे लिए सांझ करीजे गुनाह केरी छोड़ अफगन चलिए कि गुनाह दी सांझ करो अपनी. Why are we concentrating on the things that divide us? Because, and so I think those are things that are fundamentally the most important right now for individuals and youngsters to see, is that you have way more in common with somebody from potentially another organization or jathebandi than you have differences. So sanj karije guna keri shod afgan chaliye avguna nu chaddo, concentrate on your similarities, concentrate on your pyar for Guru Granth and Panth, because that is the one fundamental, like as in like peace that connects us all. Pyar for Guru Granth and Guru Panth, or we wouldn't be here.
And before we go into some more practical steps, which you're already mentioning about, solutions and even maybe more things like goal setting. Just one more question on this in terms of things that might deter us, not externally, but more internally. And that is when it comes to worrying about things that are out of our control. So how do you deal with that? I've seen some of your different podcasts or conversations, and you've got a great, vichar on this. So just for people here, because we might start something, might start a seva, we might have a certain expectation of what we want to achieve, but we may not achieve that, or things could just flip on its head. So how do you deal with this idea of, understanding that things are not in your control, and even this topic of worrying?
Yeah. Worrying is a good one because it's like one of those, it kills you slowly, like chinta jadi hai. And we used to hear this thing that like as in like is gal di chinta hai. People have chinta from everything from work to finances in their day-to-day personal lives, and then in their dharmic life we have chinta over like basically majority of it is, are we good enough? Asi apne aap nu hi kos ke mar jande hain. And to me, one of the biggest things has been is like as in like I feel I've learned the basics around like ਜੇ ਮੈਂ ਕੁਰੈਤੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਲੜ ਲੱਗਣ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ, ਮੈਂ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਛਕਿਆ ਆ, like as in ਮੈਂ ਬਾਣੀ ਪੜ੍ਹਦਾ ਆ, ਸੇਵਾ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਦਾ ਆ, all these things are ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ਾਂ. And I keep, like I have to catch myself as well when I say ਮੈਂ ਆ ਕਰਦਾ ਆ, and I shouldn't say that because ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਕਰਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ, ਜਿੰਨਾ ਕੋ ਕਰਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਕਰਾਉਣਾ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ, ਅਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਲਾਇਕ ਬਣੀਏ. But in that I would say that as in like worrying is one of those things that all the time we spend worrying, it can go into something much more productive and positive. So like as in like, let's say, for example, the most basic thing that I had heard from somebody once was like people worrying about a test, right? And why do you worry about a test? Why don't you just study? Well, it's too late. The test is tomorrow. So thodi tayari nahi si. Everything in life works this way. Worry comes from a place of not actually doing enough beforehand in order to somewhat manage a situation. You won't control it. You can somewhat manage it. When you want control over something, the worry will increase because you're never going to get it. There's a million different factors that can go wrong. And then in that moment of something, one little thing going wrong, bandyan da dil tut janda hai, or they themselves, they go into mayusi or depression in that form. That. So I think there's the piece of that in it. But I think fundamentally there's one problem in this whole thing that I want to reference, which is we have worry because of things we want. Most of the things we want are dunyavi. Like as in like, and it's because of maya, ultimately. Man soya maya bismad. Your man is basically song gaya mar gaya, like as in maya de bismad, which it's like. So it's like this is a fundamental problem, these needs and wants. And then you break that down one step further and you say like as in like people want sukh, nobody wants dukh at the end of the day. Everyone wants happiness. But then what is dukh and sukh and dukh? And I fundamentally had to go into a deep dive once and really, because I go into rabbit holes and then I can't get out of them. So I went into a deep dive and I'll give you a short version of it. When I came out of the rabbit hole, I came out very decent as in like, okay, I kind of get it now, which was like dukh tade jad visare sukh prabh chitaye. There's only one dukh and there's only one sukh. Dukh tade jad visare ਜਦੋਂ ਪ੍ਰਭੂ ਪਰਮੇਸ਼ਵਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ ਸੰਗਤ ਸੇਵਾ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵਿਸਰ ਗਏ, ਦੁੱਖ ਹੀ ਦੁੱਖ ਆ। ਸੁੱਖ ਪ੍ਰਭ ਚਿਤਾਏ, ਪ੍ਰਭੂ ਪਰਮੇਸ਼ਵਰ ਅਕਾਲ ਪੁਰਖ ਦੀ ਚਿੱਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਅਭਿਆਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਸੇਵਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਸਰਬੱਤੇ ਭਲੇ ਸਾਂਝੀਵਾਲਤਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ, ਰਜ਼ਾ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ, ਸੁੱਖ ਹੀ ਸੁੱਖ ਆ। And that's it. Everything else is dunyavi. Health, wealth, children, careers, everything. ਸਾਰਾ ਕੁਝ ਇੱਥੇ ਰਹਿ ਜਾਣਾ. The other thing that we're talking about, dukh tade jad visare sukh prabh chitaye, that is eternal, it goes with you. So I think these are things that I think that have to be foundational for people to get away from worry. Once you get into that kind of state of like, what does Guru Sahib say about this? What does Gurmat say? Because everything I say is just manmat at the end of the day. If I'm not referencing Guru Granth, and if I'm not referencing Gurbani or like as in like, or like by Gurdas Diyan Vara or by Nandalal Ji, like as in these Prathan lakes, then basically I'm just speaking from a place of ego and what I think I know. And to a degree I probably am today as well, like as in like it's going to be happening. But ultimately, like as in like this relationship with Guru Sahib has to be beyond just surface level. Where is our individual relationship with Guru Sahib? Do we have a third party that tells us what Guru Sahib is saying to us, or do we actually speak to Guru Sahib ourselves? And last little point on this one, and this one was just because I like this thing that happened to me, and it was a very big learning moment for me, and some people might agree or disagree with it, but I'll just share it. Years ago, I was at the Gurdwara Sahib that I do seva in Surrey, and I was in the Day Kamra, and I was like, and a Kathavachik Singh came, and he belawed Fateh to me, and I saw him come in, or he matha teked, and he walked over towards where I was, and he was going up towards the gallery, jithe Maharaj Su Prakash ne je kisne aan ke sahaj path karna, je hukamnama lena. And he said, as he was walking by, I belawed Fateh, and I was like, Bhai Sahib, kidhar nu chalne? And he's like, Maharaj ji darshan kar liye. And I was like, kind of like, you just matha take ke hate hain. And then he's just like sort of laughing, aaye hote. And I went upstairs, I sat down, he did, washed his hands, hukamnama, and then he got off the tabliya and he came and he goes, Horn darshan hoya. And he goes, darshan ta shabd de ho gaye. And he goes, hun ramalyan de darshan thoda hunde hai. And he didn't mean it in a belittling way, but he also gave me some sikhya in that I felt, and that was really important, that as in like, what am I so busy for that I can't even take hukum? If I keep repeating over and over again that Maharaj is the most important thing, Guru Granth Sahib Ji is the most important thing for a Sikh, how much do I actually speak to Guru Sahib? How much do I actually listen to Guru Sahib? Meri rasna to ucharan us shabd de kinna khunda hai. Those things become fundamental then to build a relationship with Guru Sahib. How many Sikhs, and nobody has to put up their hands or anything, I don't like doing these things, but you can ask yourself this question, how many people in this room have actually done Prakash of Guru Granth Sahib Ji and done Hukum? How many people go through their entire lives identifying as a Sikh and they never do it? How many Sikhs have gone through their entire life, they haven't even seen the Maharaj, Guru Granth Sahib Ji, Prakash, only seen Maharaj under Ramalle? Then what relationship does a Sikh have with their Guru? And I think this is important because you want to foster Naujawans especially to build a relationship with Guru Sahib on their own and not have to rely on third parties or others to tell them what Guru Sahib is saying, but to speak on to Guru Sahib on their own. And I think in that, like this idea that we're talking about, like as in like, it actually is fundamentally extremely important that people build those relationships themselves. Otherwise, you're relying on somebody. And my father told me, he goes, Kadi meri bhi na gal manni when it comes to Guru Granth Sahib Ji. He goes, Apna nata aap bana, and then api gal kar, like as in like Guru Dana. And it was like probably some of the best advice that I received.
And just before we come to the final questions, just one more question on this point about being comfortable versus risk taking. Should we take risks? A lot of times we're very comfortable, and it comes back to the point of fear. I'm sure a lot of people in this room are in different stages of their life, whether that's in their career, whether that's in Parchaar, Sikhi, or wherever that may be. What is the importance of risk taking, and should we be taking risks?
I think for me that question is kind of loaded. I can't tell somebody what to do if I don't do it. So. But I try to look about like as in like what our Guru Sikhs of the past did. And all of them fundamentally took risks. And you can't really be on the path of Sikhi without taking risks and kind of changing, like as in like, shaking the world up a little bit. But I feel that taking risk doesn't mean, baldi aage de vich chhal maar do. There's got to be a strategy around the risk as well. So sometimes our people like I gave you the Sakya by Bota Singh and Garja Singh. Ultimate risk, they knew the end, right? But in that moment, that level of risk and that level of commitment and sacrifice was needed in their minds, so they did it. Fundamentally, every generation we have people like that will go to the ultimate level of sacrifice and give their bodies tanaman tan sab kuch Guru nu arp dinde. Maybe not people like me because I'm kamjor or whatever it is, but people still doing that. So I think the level of risk that someone can undertake, you should constantly be pushing that line. But you take those risks in a strategic way where it's like, what's the maximum you can get back to the Panth of how you can be of value to them? And what is the, you don't just nuksan karalo and there's nothing that we actually gain out of it. And Shaheedi is never a nuksan. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that we have opportunities just like our Puratana Buzurgs did, is that you survived and you lived to fight another day. And when the moment comes, we shouldn't be afraid on that marag for whatever Guru Sahib has planned for us. So I think there's a balance there. But I do feel absolutely that not taking risks goes against the grain of what Sikhs are. Like as in strategic risks taking. And then some of us in any generation will do something spectacular and something so extraordinary that, you know, we'll be talking about it for generations. And we need those individuals as well. Because ਜਿਹੜੀਆਂ ਸਾਖੀਆਂ ਅਸੀਂ ਦੱਸਣੀਆਂ, like as in like when you talk about role models, for example, like if somebody says that Ajay Banga is a role model for Sikhs, like I have a serious problem with that. Like as in like, why? Because he reached, you know, like some, you know, level of dunyavi success. But what is his dan to Guru Granth and Guru Panth? And that's the kasavati. The kasavati isn't what you do in the material life. We don't talk about those people. Ultimately, a Panth hoa, we talk about people that have, you know, sacrificed. Like Tanuman Tan at some level, they've sacrificed. And the ones that have sacrificed their Tan are talked about the most. And in my opinion, rightfully so, because they gave the ultimate sacrifice. They gave up, you know, whatever future they had, they walked that path. And we forget like these people were most of them were extremely young in our Puratana history as well, and even in the 80s and 90s. Vast majority of them were in their late teens, early 20s, mid 20s. But they gave up everything in a moment's notice after Darbar Sahib's Hamla. So I think they took the ultimate risk and they gave the response that was needed. Today, people will rise amongst us that feel that the boundaries that we're fighting this Sangharshan, those boundaries can only be set by Guru Sahib. Things I might be uncomfortable with, I can't do them because I have a weakness or a fear. There's somebody that's beside me that's going to go even further than me. My job is not to create a dara and be like, oh no, what they're doing is wrong. We need to stay here because it's safe. And the reason I'm saying it's safe is because it's safe for me, not for the Panth. It's actually detrimental to the Panth. That individual that is still on the Guru's path, that is about to do something extraordinary in our generation, we have to be able to support them at some point. That if they go and achieve what they're trying to do, or even if they don't and they die trying, then are we ready to accept them? Are we ready to defend them? Those are fundamental questions for the rest of us. So like I said at the beginning, I'll never tell somebody to do something that I haven't done or won't do, or can't do, I should say, is probably a better thing because of my weaknesses. But meriyan niji kamjoriyan Panth di kamjori nahi ban sakdi. My personal weaknesses cannot be the weakness of the Panth, because we are going to have Sukha Singh and Matab Singh show up. We are going to have Sardar Jassa Singh Ahluwalia type show up. We are going to have, you know, like as in this day and age today, more Jajaru type Khalsa that are going to show up, Singh Singhaniya. And we have to be prepared to not only accept them and respect them, but also to defend them, because they will be the first line to be attacked, because the world will see them as terrorists and extremists, and we will see them as Jajarus. And I'll just end on Ek Aur Pe O Khalsa, Ek Aur Sansar. The dunya will see them one way. The dunya saw Guru Sahibs as criminals. Like as in like the dunya saw at the time, majority saw Guru Gobind Singh Maharaj's Panth as basically saps at the end of the day. And we've been referred to as like basically, you know, anything from, you know, I'll just say it, anything from kutte in Mughal history to like anything else you can think of in English history, to probably even worse now in this Bipar history that's being written now. But again, I come back to Ek Aur Pe O Khalsa, Ek Aur Sansar. The issue is, how do you see yourself and how do you see that entire lineage? Are we going to let them define to us who Sant Jarnail Singh Ji was or Bhai Fauja Singh was? Like, as in, are we going to do that now? Or then they'll define who Udham Singh was. Then they'll define who Sham Singh Atariawala was. They'll define Akali Phula Singh. They'll define Baba Banda Singh Bahadur. They'll define our gurus then for us. Because all of them existed in that Bagi Roop outside of the law. Otherwise, they wouldn't have gone to jail. Otherwise, they wouldn't have armed themselves. Otherwise, every single Guru Sahib rebuked the state and their emperor, including Guru Harkrishan Pacha when he went to Delhi. And when Sangat darshan kite, and he got a sneha from Aurangzeb to present himself in their court, and he rebuked it and left. This to me is Bagi, that idea of Bagi, and this is where that idea of Pachahi Dawa comes from. So I feel like, as in like in all of this, these are the things that we have to hold on to. Like as in like otherwise what we're doing is ਅਸੀਂ ਮਨਮਤ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਣੀ ਨਿੱਜੀ ਕਮਜ਼ੋਰੀਆਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ we're weakening the Panth, we're not strengthening it.
Thank you, Ji. And the last question, and apologies, I'm just going to pull my phone out because the Sangat have sending questions, so I'm not just checking my WhatsApp or checking some scores or anything. So, but just the last question from the list that we have is about goal setting, saying aims, objectives for Sangat here that have projects that they'd like to do in the future. I know you're involved in a lot of different projects back in Canada, whether that's internationally, Sikh Federation, and so on. What is so important about having a clear North Star, a clear goal? And, you know, if you want to do silver, because otherwise we could just be like headless chickens trying to do all these different things, right? So why is it so important in terms of a proactive approach going forward when it comes to trying to achieve something for the Panth?
A clear nishana or goal, the people that are trying to annihilate or assimilate us, their goal is very clear. And it's all around us. Like when we spoke about this already. If we don't have a clear defensive and offensive mechanism, then that annihilation or assimilation, you know, could be possible in the coming years or decades. So the nishana amongst like people that are young right now, and I'm kind of looking around the room and most people here are, is that if you don't infuse the idea of Raj into your Kirtan samagams, your Katha samagams, your day-to-day discourse, at least the conversation of it, we're leaving something to be said, left to be said. No one else is going to say it. The Jummevari is on every Sikh generation to continue that nishana. Theirs is a very clear goal. Ours has become convoluted over time. And it's convoluted because of mere again, their personal weaknesses. That because when you have a clear nishana, which is Raj demands sacrifice. And if we are not able to commit to that sacrifice, we shouldn't then create a separate space where we can exist without talking about what that sacrifice could mean. So basically, I'm looking at Gurdwara, other Sikh organizations, that where this galabat is not happening, you have to infuse it in there. Because when I was talking about it earlier as to like, you know, you're fostering the next generation. If we silence this conversation in our spaces, we're actually accepting the fact that there's something wrong with this conversation, meaning that there's something wrong with the idea of Sikh Raj. And I think that is something that every single Naujawan, I'm not going to tell somebody join this organization or join this federation or that group or that group. You know, you're all smart, intelligent individuals. You'll figure that part out. But anywhere you go, if you're not speaking about your Raj Karega Khalsa was a hukam from Guru Sahib. It wasn't just a dora to read. If we're not speaking about those things, we're playing into the hands of the fear that the Indian state wants to encroach upon us. And we are basically giving them a gift because no other Sikh generation has done that. No Guru Sahib did that. Jithe bhi koi gal hui hai, assi haan da nara marya even with other qawma, and our people are very quick to run to other groups like Palestinians and Tamils and others, and we should. There's nothing wrong with that. But ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਗੱਲ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ, ਜਦੋਂ ਸਾਡੇ ਤੇ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ what's happening with Sikhs, and physical extermination could happen, maybe again to some degree. Genocide could happen again to some degree. But the idea that as in like, you know, we start thinking that as in it could happen, therefore we will not talk about it. It could happen, therefore we will not act in this way of being buggy as the Guru wanted us. Basically then jo Santan di gal sigi Sanjana Singh Ji, then our conscience is dead at that point. And we're worse than dead in the Guru's eyes. Then what's the point of living? Like the physical sarir, we've talked about it a lot, about it going. The idea is, how do you keep your conscience alive? And in order to keep our conscience alive, we have to eradicate fear from it. So I think it all is interconnected. So like I can't give you one thing that you should do except for ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰੇ ਜਾਣੇ collectively ਸਾਡਾ ਅੰਮ੍ਰਿਤ ਵੇਲਾ ਸਾਂਭੀਏ, ਅਸੀਂ ਨਿਤਨੇਮੀ ਬਣੀਏ। ਜੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਤੋਂ ਨਿਤਨੇਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਜਪਜੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਜਾਂਦਾ, ਜਪਜੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੋਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਮੂਲ ਮੰਤਰ ਤੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਜਾਓ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਜਾਪ ਤੋਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਹੋ ਜਾਓ। But you should be every day advancing yourself, both spiritually, ਪੀਰੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ, and temporally and physically ਮੀਰੀ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ. That both of those agendas are two sides of the same coin. Like as in ਜਦੋਂ, you know, ਨੱਥਾ ਤੇ ਅਬਦੁੱਲਾ ਨੇ ਮਹਾਰਾਜ ਦੇ ਢਾਡੀ ਸੀਗੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਹਰਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਦੇ, ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਦੋ ਤਲਵਾਰਾਂ ਬੱਧੀਆਂ, ਇੱਕ ਮੀਰੀ ਦੀ, ਇੱਕ ਪੀਰੀ ਦੀ, like ਇੱਕ ਅਜਮਤ ਦੀ, ਇੱਕ ਰਾਜ ਦੀ, ਇੱਕ ਰਾਖੀ ਕਰੇ ਵਜ਼ੀਰੀ ਦੀ. That Miri and Piri are represented by swords. When it came to Piri, Maharaj didn't say, ਆ ਮਾਲਾ ਲੈ ਲਓ. That ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੀਰ ਆ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਤਲਵਾਰ ਦੀ ਲੋੜ ਪੈਣੀ ਆ in order to protect that, ਧਰਮ ਚਲਾਵਨ ਸੰਤ ਉਬਾਰਨ ਦੁਸ਼ਟ ਸਭਨ ਕੋ ਮੂਲ ਉਪਾਰਨ. These are all interconnected ideas and all coming from Guru Kala and the Guru's periods. This isn't something that somebody like me made up. So I think the guidance for all of us collectively is strengthening ourselves spiritually in order to be able to speak and act physically in this world. Like we just sabke mad sagalte udas, like as in like we're of the world, like we live in the world, but we're not becoming of the world. So we live here, we know this is like a sopana, so we're not becoming a part of it, but we have to exist here. And we have to make this better for the next generation of Sikhs that are coming. That will require sacrifice. That will require strength on our part to make hard decisions right now in organizations and gurdwaras at individual levels, that we have to actually go beyond our comfort zones. And it's a very fun thing for me personally right now to challenge my comfort zone, to ask myself a serious question, sometimes in Maharaj's Hazooria, why will I not do this? And uthe banda jehda hai oh jhoot nahi bol sakda. Like as in like uthe thanu pata hai why you're not doing something. And you can even make amends with that. Like I could be like main to aa kam nahi hona because I can't face that danger right now. But if Sukhdeep Singh kar reha, Sukhdeep Singh like ਇਹਦੀ support ਕਰੋ, ਇਹਦਾ ਮੇਰੇ ਲਈ ਮੈਂ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਕਰਦਾ ਹਾਂ, ਇਹ ਕਰ ਸਕਦਾ ਹੈ. Sukhdeep Singh is looking at this bachi over here and he's saying that like I can't do that, but this bachi is doing it, like as in like we should support her, ਇਹਦਾ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਹੋਣਾ ਚਾਹੀਦਾ ਹੈ. That to me is ਸਾਂਝ ਕਰੀ ਜੇ ਗੁਨਾਹ ਗੇਰੀ ਛੋੜ ਆਪਣ ਚੱਲੀਏ. That as in like when we see Gursikhs that are past us in that line of that spectrum that I was talking about, our goal should not be ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਲੱਤਾਂ ਖਿੱਚੀਏ. Our goal should be is to kind of catch up to them if we can. And I'll end on this, like as in like in 2015, January 2015, I had an opportunity to meet somebody who said something to me. And like a Kharku Singh, like as in like that was captured. And I got to meet them in prison in Thailand. It was by Jagdar Singh Tara. And I tell this story often. And like, that there's something to be taken from this. Like, people can, you can like somebody, you can not like somebody. I don't care about that. Like as in like, I'm not going to get bogged down by like as in somebody's good or bad because of personal experiences. Everyone has good, everyone has faults as well. And mere arga carry a lot of faults with me. But Bhai Jagdar Singh Tara said something, and when I met them in Thailand prison in January 2015, I asked a very naive question. Two of them, actually. Well, I'll tell you about one of them. The other one I want to keep to myself. The naive question was that, do you have any fear? And he laughingly said, he goes, basically that after 1995 when they were captured, that whatever happened to their families, whatever torture they received, like what do they do to us now? We've already been through it all. And like to me now I think it was kind of a naive question, but it was actually, the response was very anarchy at the end of the day. It was actually uplifting. Then I asked them, do you have any sneha for the Panth? And I wrote about this back in 2015 as well. And he had a very simple answer. He was like, as in like, he goes, basically don't try to collect everyone under one banner. And like, as in that everyone has to be the same. He's like, if somebody does human rights work, let them do human rights work. If somebody does legal aid work, let them do legal aid work. Koi langar launda ho langar laun. Jehda koi bachchiyan nu Gurbani sikhonda hai, oh Gurbani sikhaye. And he's like, ikkoi gal hai, he goes, Rab da wasta hai, he goes, jadon koi Jajaru Singh apna kaam karda hai, odi latta na khicho. Basically what he's saying, which is we just talked about, is this spectrum of the amount of seva we can do is massive. But don't get into this space of thinking that the seva that I do is the only seva, it's the most important seva. This is where we break off from one another. Because we're constantly in competition rather than being in collaboration. And everyone has a role. Then when jadon jang lagdi hai, jadon ladai shuru ho jandi hai, fir Lakhari Ratan Singh Bhangu varga apna uthe kalam set danda hai and he picks up his deg. Uthe fir like as in Bhai Taru Singh varge jehde prashade jehde varta rahe hai, like as in like ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਖੋਪੜ ਵੀ ਲੱਟ ਜਾਂਦੇ ਆ. And in that, like as in like Bhai Taru Singh Sakhi is a very beautiful Sakhi. Like as in when he was captured, Sangat ne ardas ਕੀਤੀ ਸੀ, like as in like Sikhi saath nibahi saas. Okay, not that save him, ਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਇਹਦੀ ਸਿੱਖੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਹੈ ਕੇਸਾਂ ਸਵਾਸਾਂ ਸੰਗ ਨਿਭ ਜਾਵੇ. That was the ardas. And then when his Shaheedi happened, in Panth Prakash ਉਹ ਦਰਜਿਆ ਕਿ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੀ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਇਹ ਸੀ ਕਿ they thanked Guru Sahib. ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਪੈਜ ਖਾਲਸੇ ਰਾਖੀ ਰਹੇ ਜਗਤ ਮੇਂ ਜੁਗ ਜੁਗ ਸਾਖੀ. ਕਿ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਨੇ ਖਾਲਸੇ ਦੀ ਪੈਜ ਰੱਖ ਲਈ ਕਿ ਤਾਰੂ ਸਿੰਘ ਡੋਲਿਆ ਨਹੀਂ, ਕਿ कि महाराज दी कृपा हुई ਰਹੇ ਜਗਤ में जुग जुग साखी that ਇਹ ਸਾਖੀ ਨਾ ਹੁਣ ਜਿੰਨਾ ਚਿਰ ਜਗਤ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਇਹ ਸਾਖੀ ਤਾਰੂ ਸਿੰਘ ਦੀ ਚੱਲੂਗੀ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ and almost 300 years later ਅਸੀਂ ਆਪਣੇ ਬੱਚਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਸਾਖੀਆਂ ਦੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ people do extraordinary things because Guru ਦੀ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ and we have to be able to accept the fact that ਜੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਤੋਂ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਤੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਹੋਰ ਤੋਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਦਾ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ ਕਰਾਂ and I don't become jealous of it or I don't try to pull them back or I try to say that ਇਹ ਤਾਂ like as in like ਗੱਲ ਗਲਤ ਹੈ ਇੰਨੀ ਕੀ ਸੇਵਾ ਸਾਡੀ ਇੰਨੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਹੋਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ ਹੈ which oftentimes we end up seeing. So I tell that story because that Satguru Paj Khalsa Rakhi Rahe Jagat Mein Jug Jug Sakhi, those are the role models. That in this generation, who's going to be Bhai Taru Singh? Who's going to be Bhai Mani Singh? Who's going to be Sar Baba Deep Singh? Like as in like those are the role models that 300, 500, 700 years, however long Maharaj Di Kala Vartaniya Jagat de vich, that who will those Sikh role models be? Because we need new ones every generation.
Thank you so much, Bhai Sahib, and thank you to the Sangat as well for staying this day as well. Just humble benti, we could take one question from the Sangat because Guru Kirpa, with the questions that came in, Bhai Sahib ji pretty much answered all of them through the previous 2 hours of discussion. So we're just going to have one question from the Sangat, then the final message from Bhai Sahib, and then we're going to do a Chaupai Sahib in Sangat Roop to finish off. So Benti, please don't leave. I know it's late. It's Monday as well, but it doesn't matter. Let's stay together for this last part. Last question from the Sangat, final message, and then Chaupai Sahib Sangat Roop, and then we'll do Samapti of the podcast. So the question that came in from the Sangat was, can you tell us about the final days of Shaheed by Hardeep Singh Nijjar?
Well, I can try. There's some interconnected stories here, so I'll try to keep it brief. Tusi kafi samay the like batit bita hai, but maybe I'll wrap it up this way. Like as in, there's many other people in Bhai Hardeep Singh's life that were very close to him. Like some of us, like I lived near him. We were in the same city. We did a lot of work together. But by no means am I the only individual that considers themselves close to him. And I consider myself close to him because he gave me a lot of love. As somebody that was born in the West, and he came from the Sangharsh. He was tortured while he was in Punjab. He had darshan of Shaheed Singhs while the Sangharsh was going on. So he lived a very different life, and I lived a very protected, sheltered life, I would say, compared to what he was. But one thing I always got from him was that this guy just was like, never stopped. Like as in, like to me, Biasi Singh si, like Vaan si, like those are the things that everyone kind of forgets. All people see sometimes is like these little clips of these little speeches. That was just him like pouring himself out like in public. Then when you sat with him and you spoke to him, like, he worried like everyone else. Like he had kids, he had a family, someone's brother, someone's son, someone's father, someone's Singh. Like he was just like us up until the day he was Shaheed. But the things that we noticed after his Shaheedi was that he wasn't like us actually. Like as in like, mere arge nu ek warning mili, maybe mere arge ne dar jana. This guy was warned in July of 2022. Every month, multiple times, it kept coming back to him. Not me, even though I was given the same warning, but him. They kept coming back to him that, something's going to happen, something's going to happen, but they wouldn't do anything. So that's maybe a different topic of why and things like that. But one thing in that last year, June 15th, 2023, Bhai Avtar Singh Khanda dies here. We watched for about 48 hours. We were getting calls from Singhs in England that something's wrong. They're telling us that he was perfectly fine, like the week prior, like he went hiking, he was at the June rally here. And suddenly, there's an onset of acute leukemia somehow. And it's more than obvious that he was like poisoned, that this was an act of assassination by the Indian government in our eyes. But what happened was on June 15th, news of his Shaheedi comes to Canada. Me and Bhai Hardeep Singh talk on the phone. And I was like, I'm going to call a meeting because when we heard he was sick, me, him, and another Singh there had a conversation at that other Singh's home that Hardeep Singh needs to be careful. Like something's up with Khanda. Like, how did this happen all of a sudden? June 15th, we got news that Avtar Singh had passed away. That day, I called him and I talked to him and I was like, I'm calling a meeting tomorrow at Guru Nanak Sikh Gurdwara jithe ho mukh sevadar di seva nibha rahe si. And he's like, theek hai. And I was like, basically to him that like as in like thodi gal honi hai, and he's like pata minno, he's like Kala, and I was like theek hai. He always called me like Chote Veer, so I was just like so I called the meeting. I had about 10 people maybe from his team that he was very close with at the Gurdwara, and a few others that I had brought with me. I remember like the clockwork, like people were in the room. I shut the door, I locked it. I turned, he was like sitting like this. And I said to the room full of people that I was like, "Apa banda mar jana hai te apa baad ch kehna ki sade ko galti ho gayi, assi kuch kita nahi." And I was like, to me, I was just like, I go mere argi to, I go like, because I had a warning as well. I go mere argi to wo baad di wari hai. I go, they want him. That sanu kuch karan di lod hai. And then it was basically 2 hours of conversation of where he goes, how he gets there. When he comes to the Gurdwara, he spends way too much time just wandering around the Gurdwara, like 12 hours a day, like as in most days. So he might take a break and go out at one point to do some business and stuff like that, come back again. And then it wasn't like, oh, he sat in an office. If you look at all the imagery of this guy, he's just toya on the bed, he's with a shovel. He's doing mopping the Langar Hall floor. But this guy led by example. This was the biggest thing I found about him, like as in over the years that I knew him. He never told anyone to do anything. He would just start doing it, and then people would just be like, out of sharam de mare karo, or inspiration, you just like, he's doing it, and sanu ki hoya, sab songya, we should be doing it too. So he was very inspirational without saying a lot of the times. Other times he would get angry and just start yelling at people that as like, tusi kuch nahi karde, kuch kar liya karo. But what I'm saying is that he was a human being at the end of the day. So we had that meeting on June 16th. And 48 hours later, like as in like he was killed on Father's Day, June 18th, 2023, 8:30 p.m. in Guru Nanak Sikh Gurdwara at the back gate. And the outpouring of like emotion was like unbelievable. Like from his funeral, like tens of thousands of people like coming. Through the days, even that night, like he was killed, news started spreading. I got there within half an hour. There was already 500-600 people there. 10-15 minutes later, we're looking around, it had doubled. Within the hour, there's like 2,000-3,000 people in the parking lot, like people just swarming in. But he must have had an influence. He must have had like an effect on people for people to show that much grief. And somebody's just been shot to death at a Gurdwara. And people in the thousands are running to the Gurdwara. Like, what if they're still there? Nobody thought, what if they're still there? Nobody thought that somebody could be harmed. Nobody thought that minnu kuch ho jana, mere nyane no, people are running and coming. And at the funeral for Bhai Hardeep Singh, I was watching from the casket, because I had the opportunity to just stand by the casket the entire time. It was in the Gurdwara Sahib parking lot. And I was watching things, and these scenes were unfolding, and it was just surreal almost in a way. So once the funeral was done, jadon assi sanskar karke mudke wapas Gurdwara aaye, and the pandal was full of Sangat, and I had an opportunity to speak to the Sangat, and the things came out, but there's one thing that came out that I remember very clearly was, and I was like, you will remember this day, that aaj pehli vaar after I don't know how long, is dharti de utte ਸਾਨੂੰ ਇਹ ਮਾਣ ਮਹਿਸੂਸ ਹੋ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਸ਼ਹੀਦ ਦੀ ਦੇਹ ਦੇਖੀ ਹੈ. And I go, there's bibiyaan that were coming, lifting 2-year-olds, 4-year-olds, newborns up like this to show them by Hardeep Singh. That is not like as in like normal, let's call it, in this Western society. And then I go, it takes me back to ek aur pe wo Khalsa, ek aur sansar. I'm going to keep saying it because this is different. This is who we are. So that to me, like the pyar, the respect, the satkar, like all of that. But one thing I'll just say, like his last days, or probably like his days before that as well, people will be like, oh, beparwasi. He wasn't beparwa in a way that like he was lax, or like as in like he was asking for it or something like that. He was beparwa in the fact that when he was given his warning in July of 2022, his son was translating for him, Balraj Singh. And Balraj Singh told us this, and Balraj Singh shared this story, that when he was translating, like Hardeep Singh kept laughing. So there's a woman there that's from national security saying that you're at imminent threat of assassination, you're going to be killed, we have this information, we need to work on a safety plan. And then Balraj is translating, and oh, has de sige, like as in, And the woman actually had to ask Balraj that I don't think he understands what I'm saying. Like, tell him that I am saying that he is going at imminent threat of assassination right now. And then Balraj told his father, Bhai Hardeep Singh, that as an ਉਹ ਕਹਿ ਰਹੀ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੱਸ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਕਿ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਲੱਗਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਸਮਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਆ ਰਹੀ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਮਾਰਨ ਲਈ ਤੁਲਿਆ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਅੱਜ ਜਾਂ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਮਾਰ ਜਾਣਾ. And then Hardeep Singh spoke to him in Punjabi, basically saying that as in like ਇਹਨੂੰ ਦੱਸ ਦੇ ਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਪੈਦਾ ਹੀ ਇਸ ਕੰਮ ਲਈ ਹੋਏ ਆ ਕਿ ਇਸ ਡਰਨ ਦੀ ਹੁਣ ਕੀ ਲੋੜ ਆ. Right? Like, and that he kind of translated it back, and वो बेचारी ने होना है कि like, what is this? And then again back to एक और पे वो खालसा एक और संसार. Like, our perception of the world is different. So like, as an ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਨਹੀਂ ਸਮਝ ਆਉਣੀ ਇਹ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਦੀ. But that's the way I saw him over that last year. Like, he wasn't beparwa where he was just like, you know, like as in, you know, asking for it. He was beparwa because he had accepted what this was leading to. He had accepted the idea that death could come. He had accepted the idea that, you know, we were talking before, why should he worry and have anxiety over Maran Lakhai Mandal Mein Aaye? He has no control over this. The only thing he has control over is Ardas kare ke Maharaj minu dolan to bacha leo. Sikhi ke sanswasa sang nib jave, like we talked about Bhai Taru Singh. And that's what I believe, like his last days were all in that, because he knew something was coming. That very morning when he spoke at the Gurdwara, 8 hours before that, around 12 o'clock on Sunday morning at the Gurdwara, he's saying from the stage that as in like they're closing in, that even if I'm not here, basically the idea, that you carry this forward. But every shaheed, every kalukara, jo niksa jahe raj lahe marag par jaye, the message is the same. The idea, the concept, the reason for the shaheed, he can't die with the shaheed. The jummewari then goes on to the generation that has that shaheed to carry that message and that action forward then at that point.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Bhai Sahib Ji. And this brings us to the closing four. And it brings us back to something you mentioned earlier when it comes to the idea of if anyone in this room, if they were told that 5 minutes before they were going to pass away, what would be the final thing that they would do, the final thing that they would say to their friends or to their family or to Guru Sahib Ji. And as a closing comment to the Sangat, if there was a final message you could give to the Sangat, what would be that final message? If that was your last message and you felt like that was the most important thing that you'd like to leave with the Sangat? I was thinking in my head as I'm not trying to say that, but that's why I tried to give the 5 minute thing, because you said it yourself earlier.
I won't give the message. ਆਪਾਂ ਸ਼ਬਦ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ like as in ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਦਾ ਨਿਬੇੜਾ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ. Like as in like ਜਿੰਨਾ I spoke earlier about ਪਿਆਰ, right? ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਸਾਡਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਆ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਤੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਪੰਥ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਜਾਂ ਸਰਬੱਤ ਦੇ ਲਈ, like as in that should be ਮੁੱਖ in every action that we commit. So like a ਸ਼ਬਦ that is I think very near and dear to me is like ਮੈਂ ਸਤਿਗੁਰ ਸੇਤੀ ਪਿਰ ਹੜੀ ਕਿਉਂ ਗੁਰਬਨ ਜੀਵਾ ਮਾਓ. ਕਿ ਪਿਰ ਹੜੀ ਇੰਨਾ ਤਕੜਾ ਪਿਆਰ ਆ like as in like ਗੁਰੂ ਦੇ ਲਈ ਕਿਉਂ ਗੁਰਬਨ ਜੀਵਾ ਮਾਓ ਕਿ basically ਅਸੀਂ ਗੁਰੂ ਤੋਂ ਬਿਨਾਂ ਜਿਉ ਕਿੱਦਾਂ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ. So you know when you go into the ਮੈਂ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਆਧਾਰ ਹੈ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਲਾਗ ਰਹਾਓ ਕਿ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਦੇ ਓਟ ਆਸਰੇ ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਜਿਉਂਦੇ ਹਾਂ. We exist because of it. ਤੇ ਗੁਰਬਾਣੀ ਲਾਗ ਰਹਾਓ, this will be that pillar for us to like hold on to give us support in life in any ਸੰਘਰਸ਼ that ਅਸੀਂ ਮਿੱਥਦੇ ਹਾਂ. Like as in ਇਸ ਦੇ ਹੀ ਅੰਦਰ ਪੰਜ ਚੋਰ ਵਸੇ ਕਾਮ ਕ੍ਰੋਧ ਲੋਭ ਮੋਹ ਹੰਕਾਰਾ. Like as in is day de vich, we have a Sangharsh with Kam Kro Lo Mohankar every day. There's an internal struggle and there's an external struggle. Both we have to fight. And that's I think the fundamental principle of what a Sikh being is that the Santa Sapai, Miri, Piri, and this like internal, external struggle we have, these things have to be balanced. You can't have just one. You can't just be a Sapai at the end of the day. Like as in like the idea of being like just a soldier at the end of the day with Dharam, without Dharam, most likely you'll become a Jarwana at the end of the day. And I'd just like to like comment on like one thing. Jadona, like we have like shabds within Gurbani, and then I think I need to do a lot more vyakhya, and there's much more probably learned people than me here as well. But one particular thing that people say, Raj na chahu, Mukta na chahu. And then they start using shabds like this to be like, Asi ta Raj chaunda hi nahi, right? But there's all these metaphors and meanings that, you know, at the surface level, we have to understand better. Like Raj na chahu, Mukta na chahu, Manpreet Charan Kamlare. The idea Raj na chahu, ho sakda, Maharaj wanted us to understand that Raj da asal hakadar ohi ya jada hun chaunda nahi. Because if you want Raj, you'll do almost anything in your power to protect it, which is you will become an oppressor or a tyrant at some point. So ਜਿਹੜਾ ਬੰਦਾ Raj ਚਾਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੀ ਨਹੀਂ, maybe they are the true individuals that should have Raj because they don't want it. Kind of like Jaheda Darbara Singh, kind of like Nawab Kapoor Singh. They were sache sevadar hon. So Raj na chahun, mukt na chahun. Now, if you want mukti, and all the seva you do, all the abhyas you do, everything you do in life is because in your mind ek ਕੀੜਾ ਬੜਿਆ ਆ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਤਾਂ ਸੇਵਾ ਸਿਮਰਨਾ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮੁਕਤੀ ਮਿਲ ਜੂਗੀ, ਉਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਮੁਕਤੀ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਣੀ. Because all of your like seva is now not nishkam anymore. ਜਿਹੜਾ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਿਮਰਨ ਅਭਿਆਸ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਨਿਸ਼ਕਾਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈਗਾ, ਉਹ ਕਿਸ ਕਾਰਨ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਰ ਰਹੇ ਆ ਗੁਰੂ ਤੋਂ ਕੁਝ ਲੈਣ ਲਈ. ਗੁਰੂ ਨੇ ਦੇ ਦੇਣਾ ਆ. Manpreet Charan Kamalare to me just means that as in like all we want is this. And Sukha Jinda, like as in like in their letters, Bhai Jinda wrote a letter to his father. And he says, Sadi manzile maqsood jehdi hai wo Khalistan te khatam nahi hundi. They want it, but wo te khatam nahi hundi. And he's like, Sadi jehdi manzile maqsood wo Satguru de Charan Kamal ne. Sada Sangharsh Sadivi hai. And it's such a powerful statement ke Sada Sangharsh Sadivi hai. It's everlasting, never ending. What that means is that one kaam karo lobh moh hankar na sikh jehda hai har ek swas ਨਾਲ ਲੜ ਰਿਹਾ ਹੈ, that's your internal struggle. ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਜਰਵਾਣਾ ਹੈ that's oppressing people all around the world, ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਰਾਜ ਸਥਾਪਿਤ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਲਿਆ, you have an obligation now to other ਗਰੀਬ ਦੀ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਜਰਵਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਪੱਖਿਆ, that ਤੁਸੀਂ ਗਰੀਬ ਦੀ ਰੱਖਿਆ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ, ਜਰਵਾਣੀ ਦੀ ਪੱਖਿਆ ਕਰਨੀ ਹੈ, and that's not just within Punjab. ਇਹ ਸਾਰੀ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਖਾਲਸੇ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਲਾਈ ਹੈ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਗੁਰੂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆ ਉਹ ਸਿਰਫ ਸਿੱਖਾਂ ਦਾ ਇਕੱਲਾ ਦਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਨਹੀਂ, ਗੁਰੂ ਤਾਂ ਲਾਈਕ ਸ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟ ਦਾ ਗੁਰੂ ਬੇਸਿਕਲੀ ਆਫ ਦੀ ਇੰਟਾਇਰ ਯੂਨੀਵਰਸ. ਸੋ ਉੱਥੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਸਾਡੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੁਕਮ ਗੁਰੂ ਦਾ ਆ, it becomes much ਬਿਗਰ. ਸਾਡੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਆ becomes much ਬਿਗਰ. But to tell you the truth, there's a beauty in this that we have to find. That ਐਡਾ ਹੀ ਵੱਡੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਰੂਪ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ ਦਿੱਤੀ ਹੈ. That should be something to be not only proud of, but something that we want to aspire to become more and more, that we are never satisfied with how much we're doing for Guru Sahib, because Guru Sahib has given us something that we can't repay. Sade siran de utte ek karja a, ਇਹ ਤਾਜ ਜੋ ਸਾਡੇ ਸਿਰਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਗੁਰੂ ਨੇ ਸਾਜਿਆ ਹੈ, ਸਾਨੂੰ ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਹੈ, ਗਰੀਬਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਾਹੋਂ ਫੜ ਕੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਲਾਈਕ ਐਜ਼ ਇਨ ਬੇਸਿਕਲੀ ਸ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟ ਦੇ ਰਾਜੇ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਹੈ. that if they gave us this much, then what can we give back to them? ਤਨ ਮਨ ਤਨ ਤਾਂ ਦੇ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ. So I think in that Gurbani idea, it's something that we can't let go of in any generation. Some of us, like I said, will do extraordinary things. The rest of us have a jummevari to ensure that we some of those extraordinary things in our nazariya and not in the Jarvana's nazariya.
Well, thank you so much, Bhai Sahib Ji, for answering the last question of the podcast. And just thank you so much for coming on today. You're an inspiration to all the Sangat here. And your experiences and the vichar that you share with the Sangat have been fantastic. Even it just seems like, which it is, it's all rooted in Naam and in Gurbani in terms of the Panth used, Main Gurbani Ada hai. And with that, what a better way to finish off than doing a Chaupe Sahib in Sangat Roop. As Guru Sahib Ji says, which is Sangat Harapra Vasse Jio. That's within the Sangat that Guru Sahib resides. And my beinti to the Sangat is that this Chaupe Sahib is for Bhai Sahib Ji's Chardi Kala, and for the Chardi Kala of all the Khalsa Panth as well. So beinti to all the Sangat, please join in with the Chaupe Sahib. You don't want to hear my horrible voice just singing on my own. So beinti if you can all join in and keep Autyan Guru Sahib Ji Charan and the Ardas to Satguru Ji Maharaj for Bhai Sahib Ji's Chardi Kala, for the Chardi Kala of the Khalsa Panth as well. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਇੱਕ ਓੰਕਾਰ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. ਪਾਤਸ਼ਾਹੀ ਦਸਵੀਂ ਕਬਿਓ ਬਾਚ ਬੇਨਤੀ ਚਉਪਈ ਹਮਰੀ ਕਰੋ ਹਾਥ ਦੇ ਰੱਛਾ ਪੂਰਨ ਹੋਏ ਚਿਤ ਕੀ ਇੱਛਾ ਤਬ ਚਰ ਰਨ ਮਨ ਰਹੇ ਹਮਾਰਾ ਆਪਣਾ ਜਾਨ ਕਰੋ ਪ੍ਰਤਿਪਾਰਾ ਹਮਰੇ ਦੁਸ਼ਟ ਸਵੈ ਤੁਮ ਘਾਵੋ ਆਪ ਹਾਥ ਦੇ ਮੋਹਿ ਬਚਾਵੋ ਸੁਖੀ ਬਸੈ ਮੋਰੋ ਪਰਿਵਾਰਾ ਸੇਵਕ ਸਿੱਖ ਸਵੈ ਕਰਤਾਰਾ मोर अच्छा निज करते करिए सब बैरिन को आर संगलिए पूरन होए हमारी आशा तोड़ भजन की रह प्यासा तुम है छाड़ कोई अवर न त्याऊं जो पर चाहूं सो तुम ते पाऊं सेवक सिख हमारे तारिय है चुन चुन सत्र हमारे मारिय है आप हाथ दे मुझे उबरिय मरण काल का त्रास निवरिय पूजो सदा हमारे पच्छा श्री अस तुझ जू करियो रक्षा ਰਾਖ ਲਿਓ ਮੋਹਿ ਰਾਖਣ ਹਾਰੇ, ਸਾਹਿਬ ਸੰਤ ਸਹਾਇ ਪਿਆਰੇ। ਦੀਨ ਬੰਧ ਦੁਸ਼ਟਨ ਕੇ ਹੰਤਾ, ਕਮਹੁ ਪੁਰੀ ਚਤੁਰ ਦਸ ਕੰਤਾ। ਕਾਲ ਪਾਏ ਬ੍ਰਹਮਾ ਬਵਤਾਰਾ, ਕਾਲ ਪਾਏ ਸ਼ਿਵ ਜੂ ਅਵਤਾਰਾ। ਕਾਲ ਪਾਏ ਕਰ ਬਿਸਨ ਪ੍ਰਕਾਸ਼ਾ, ਸਕਲ ਕਾਲ ਕਾ ਕੀਆ ਤਮਾਸਾ। ਜਮਨ ਕਾਲ ਜੋਗੀ ਸਿਵ ਕੀਓ, ਵੇਦ ਰਾਜ ਬ੍ਰਹਮਾ ਜੂਥੀਓ। ਜਮਨ ਕਾਲ ਸਭ ਲੋਕ ਸਵਾਰਾ, ਨਮਸਕਾਰ ਹੈ ਤਾਹੇ ਹਮਾਰਾ। ਜਮਨ ਕਾਲ ਸਭ ਜਗਤ ਬਨਾਇਓ, ਦੇਵ ਦੈਤ ਜਛਨ ਪਜਾਇਓ। ਆਦ ਅੰਤ ਏਕੈ ਅਵਤਾਰਾ, ਸੋਈ ਗੁਰੂ ਸਮਝਿਓ ਹਮਾਰਾ। ਨਮਸਕਾਰ ਤਿਸ ਹੀ ਹੋ ਹਮਾਰੀ, ਸਕਲ ਪ੍ਰਜਾ ਜਿਨ ਆਪ ਸਵਾਰੀ। ਸਿਵਕਨ ਕੋ ਸਭ ਗੁਣ ਸੁਖ ਦਿਓ, ਸਤਰਨ ਕੋ ਪਲ ਮੋਹ ਬਦ ਕੀਓ। ਘਟ ਘਟ ਕੇ ਅੰਤਰ ਕੀ ਜਾਣਤ, ਭਲੇ ਬੁਰੇ ਕੀ ਪੀੜ ਪਛਾਨਤ। ਚੀਟੀ ਤੇ ਕੰਚੁਰ ਅਸਥੂਲਾ, ਸਭ ਪਰ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਦ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟ ਕਰ ਫੂਲਾ। ਸੰਤਨ ਦੁਖ ਪਾਏ ਤੇ ਦੁਖੀ, ਸੁਖ ਪਾਏ ਸਾਧਨ ਕੇ ਸੁਖੀ। ਏਕ ਏਕ ਕੀ ਪੀਰ ਪਛਾਨੈ, ਘਟ ਘਟ ਕੇ ਪਟ ਪਟ ਕੀ ਜਾਣੈ। ਜਬ ਬੁਧ ਕਰਖ ਕਰਾ ਕਰ ਤਾਰਾ, ਪ੍ਰਜਾ ਤਰਤਾ ਦੇਹ ਅਪਾਰਾ। ਜਬ ਆ ਕਰਖ ਕਰਤ ਹੋ ਕਬਹੂੰ, ਤੁਮ ਮੈਂ ਮਿਲਤ ਦੇਹ ਧਰ ਸਭ ਹੂੰ। ਜੇਤੇ ਬਦਨ ਸ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟ ਸਭ ਧਾਰੈ, ਆਪ ਆਪਣੀ ਬੂਝ ਉਚਾਰੈ। ਤੁਮ ਸਭ ਹੀ ਤੇ ਰਹਿਤ ਨਿਰਾਲਮ, ਜਾਣਤ ਵੇਦ ਭੇਦ ਹਰ ਆਲਮ। ਨਿਰੰਕਾਰ ਨਿਰਭਕਾਰ ਨਿਰਲੰਭ, ਆਦ ਅਨੀਲ ਅਨਾਦ ਅਸੰਭ। ਤਾਕਾ ਮੂੜ ਉਚਾਰਤ ਭੇਦਾ, ਜਾਕੋ ਭੇਵ ਨ ਭਾਵਤ ਵੇਦਾ। ਤਾਕੋ ਕਰਪਾ ਹਨ ਅਨੁਮਾਨਤ, ਮਹਾ ਮੂੜ ਕਛ ਭੇਦ ਨ ਜਾਣਤ। ਮਹਾਦੇਵ ਕੋ ਕਹਿਤ ਸਦਾ ਸਿਵ, ਨਿਰੰਕਾਰ ਕਾ ਚੀਤ ਨਹਿ ਭਿਵ। ਆਪ ਆਪਣੀ ਬੁੱਧ ਹੈ ਜੇਤੀ, ਵਰਨਤ ਭਿੰਨ ਭਿੰਨ ਤੋਹਿ ਤੇਤੀ। ਤੁਮਰਾ ਲਖਾ ਨ ਜਾਏ ਪਸਾਰਾ, ਕਹਿ ਬਿਦ ਸਜਾ ਪ੍ਰਥਮ ਸੰਸਾਰਾ। ਏਕੈ ਰੂਪ ਅਨੂਪ ਸਰੂਪਾ, ਰੰਗ ਭਇਓ ਰਾਵ ਕਹਿ ਭੂਪਾ। ਅੰਡਜ ਜੇਰਜ ਸੇਤਜ ਕੀਨੀ, ਤੁਧ ਖਾਨ ਬਹੁਰ ਰਚ ਦੀਨੀ। ਕਹੂੰ ਫੂਲ ਰਾਜਾ ਹੈ ਬੈਠਾ, ਕਹੂੰ ਸਿਮਟ ਭਇਓ ਸੰਕਰ ਕੈਠਾ। ਸਿਗਰੀ ਸ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟ ਦਿਖਾਏ ਸੰਭਵ, ਆਦ ਜੁਗਾਦ ਸਰੂਪ ਸਿਅੰ ਭਵ। ਅਬ ਰੱਛਾ ਮੇਰੀ ਤੁਮ ਕਰੋ, ਸਿੱਖ ਅਬਾਰ ਸਿੱਖ ਸੰਘਾਰੋ। ਦੁਸ਼ਟ ਤੇ ਉਠਵਤ ਉਤਪਾਤਾ, ਸਕਲ ਮਲੇਸ਼ ਕਰੋ ਰਨ ਘਾਤਾ। ਜੇ ਅਸ ਤੁਜ ਤਵ ਸਰਨੀ ਪਰੇ, ਤਿਨਕੇ ਦੁਸ਼ਟ ਦੁਖਿਤ ਹਵੇ ਮਰੇ। ਪੁਰਖ ਜਵਨ ਪਗ ਪਰੇ ਤਿਹਾਰੇ, ਤਿਨਕੇ ਤੁਮ ਸੰਕਟ ਸਭ ਟਾਰੇ। ਜੋ ਕਲ ਕਉ ਕਬਾਰ ਧਿਐ ਹੈ, ਤਾਕੇ ਕਾਲ ਨਿਕਟ ਨਹਿ ਐ ਹੈ। ਰੱਛਾ ਹੋਏ ਤਾਹੇ ਸਭ ਕਾਲਾ, ਦੁਸ਼ਟ ਅਰਿਸ਼ਟ ਡਰੈ ਤਤ ਕਾਲਾ। ਕਿਰਪਾ ਦ੍ਰਿਸ਼ਟ ਤਨ ਜਾਹੇ ਨ ਹਰਿਓ, ਤਾਕੇ ਥਾਪ ਤਨਕ ਮਹਿ ਹਰਿਓ। ਰਿੱਧ ਸਿੱਧ ਕਰਮੋ ਸਭ ਹੋਈ, ਦੁਸ਼ਟ ਛਾਹ ਛੁਐ ਸਕੇ ਨ ਕੋਈ। ਏਕ ਬਾਰ ਜਿਨ ਤੁਮੈ ਸੰਭਾਰਾ, ਕਾਲ ਪਾਸ ਕੇ ਤਾਹਿ ਉਬਾਰਾ। ਜਿਨ ਨਰ ਨਾਮ ਤਿਹਾਰੋ ਕਹਾ, ਦਾਰਿਦ ਦੁਸ਼ਟ ਦੋਖ ਤੇ ਰਹਾ। ਖੜਗ ਖੇਤ ਮੈਂ ਸਰਨ ਤਿਹਾਰੀ, ਆਪ ਲੇਹੋ ਵਾਰੀ। ਸਰਬ ਠੌਰ ਮੋਹ ਸਹਾਈ, ਦੁਸ਼ਟ ਦੋਖ ਤੇ ਲੇਹੋ ਬਚਾਈ। ਕਿਰਪਾ ਕਰੀ ਹਮ ਪਰ ਜਗ ਮਾਤਾ, ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਕਰਾ ਪੂਰਨ ਸੁਭਰਾਤਾ। ਕਿਲ ਬਿਖ ਸਕਲ ਦੇਹ ਕੋ ਹਰਤਾ, ਦੁਸ਼ਟ ਦੋਖਿਅਨ ਕੋ ਛੈ ਕਰਤਾ। ਸਿਰਿਅਸ ਤੁਜ ਜੋ ਪਏ ਦਿਆਲਾ, ਪੂਰਨ ਕਰਾ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਤਤਕਾਲਾ। ਮਨ ਵਾਂਛਤ ਫਲ ਪਾਵੈ ਸੋਈ, ਦੁਖ ਨ ਤਿਸੈ ਭਿਆਪਤ ਕੋਈ। ਅਰਿਲ ਸੁਨੇ ਗੁੰਗ ਜੋ ਯਾਹੇ ਸੁਰਸ ਨਾ ਪਾਵਈ, ਸੁਨੇ ਮੂੜ ਚਿਤ ਲਾਏ ਚਤੁਰਤਾ ਆਵਈ। ਦੁਖ ਦਰਦ ਪਉ ਨਿਕਟ ਨ ਤਿਨ ਨਰ ਕੇ ਰਹੈ, ਹੋ ਜੋ ਯਾ ਕੀ ਏਕ ਬਾਰ। ਚਉਪਈ ਕੋ ਕਹਿ ਚਉਪਈ, ਸੰਬਤ 17 ਸਹਿਸ ਭਣਿਜੈ। ਅਰਧ ਸਹਿਸ ਪੁਨ ਤੀਨ ਕਹਿਜੈ। ਭਾਦਰਵ ਸੁਦੀ ਅਸ਼ਟਮੀ ਰਵਿਵਾਰਾ, ਤੀਰਸ ਤਦਰਵ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸੁਧਾਰਾ। ਸਵੈया ਪਾਏ ਗਏ ਜਬ ਤੇ ਤੁਮਰੇ, ਤਬ ਤੇ ਕਉ ਆਖ ਤਰੇ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਨਿਓ। ਰਾਮ ਰਹੀਮ ਪੁਰਾਨ ਕੁਰਾਨ, ਅਨੇਕ ਕਹੈ ਮਤ ਏਕ ਨ ਮਾਨਿਓ। ਸਿਮਰਤ ਸ਼ਾਸਤਰ ਵੇਦ ਸਭੈ, ਬਹੁ ਭੇਦ ਕਹਿ ਹਮ ਏਕ ਨ ਜਾਣਿਓ। ਸਿਰਿ ਅਸ ਪਾਨ ਕਿਰਪਾ ਤੁਮਰੀ ਕਰ, ਮੈਂ ਨਾ ਕਹਿਓ ਸਭ ਤੋਹਿ ਬਖਾਨਿਓ। ਦੋਹਰਾ ਸਗਲ ਦੁਆਰ ਕਉ ਛਾਡ ਕੈ, ਗਹਿਓ ਤੁਹਾਰ ਦੁਆਰ। ਮਾਹਿ ਗਏ ਕੀ ਲਾਜ ਅਸ, ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਦਾਸ ਤੁਹਾਰ। ਸਗਲ ਦੁਆਰ ਕਉ ਛਾਡ ਕੈ, ਗਹਿਓ ਤੁਹਾਰ ਦੁਆਰ। ਮਾਹੇ ਗਹੇ ਕੀ ਲਾਜ ਅਸ ਗੋਬਿੰਦ ਦਾਸ ਤੁਹਾਰ। ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।